So we'd like to begin by acknowledging that Concordia University is located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Ganyan-Gehaga Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather today. Montreal is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today it is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. We respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. As for roll call, I'll make a sheet and send it around periodically. We do have some requests for excusals as well, which I've received from Nicholas, Victoria, Arad, Aman, Christian, and Lee. So if anyone wants to move to excuse them, Jared.
I move to approve a, what's the word?
Omnibus?
I'll excuse me.
Okay, do we have a second? Salman. Is there any opposition to excusing the aforementioned councillors? Okay, perfect. So the motion carries unanimously. I'm not sure if you all read my report, but just a little bit of housekeeping. So this meeting, well, in the past meetings, we've been going very much over time. So I just want to remind you all that it's 20 minutes per agenda point and 2 minutes per speaker. As well, if we could stop repeating things that other people say. So I'm going to be doing a lot better at keeping time. Just so that things roll along a lot quicker. As well, just I kind of want to make you think a little bit about how the meetings are being run. So just ask yourselves the question in a meeting, when you're hearing other people talk, have they ever changed your opinion on how you're going to vote? Because I feel like we go into a lot of these points and everybody already knows how they're going to vote, but everybody's still talking and nothing's actually changing anyone's mind. So if everybody's already decided on how they're going to vote, talking in circles just makes the meetings go longer and it makes it a lot more difficult and less efficient for anyone, for everyone in the room. So just keep that in mind, please. If you're not going to change your mind about something, then we'll just move to a vote and everything will go a lot smoother. As well, yeah, just another point as well, for motions and agenda points being sent out, try to make sure that you send your documents on time so that I have time to review them as well. It saves us a lot of trouble. And I had done this last year where I asked people to send like a bit of a description about what they're going to be talking about, especially for the informational points. So if you want to submit something informational, just send me like 1 or 2 sentences about what the point's going to be about. And then from what I hear, people like the annotated agendas I sent out last year, so it gives you a little bit of like preparation about what the meeting's going to be about. So if there's any relevant bylaws or standing regs, I send out kind of like a longer version of the agenda with all of those written, and then you can come in a little bit better prepared. So I'll write that in the Facebook group and remind you when it comes to submitting for next council. So yeah, with that being said, we'll move along to approval of the agenda. So if anyone has anything to add, subtract, amend, so forth. Yes, Elias?
Yeah, so I have 2 motions to add, which come from, we had a financial committee last night. So essentially there's 2 motions I would like to add on. There's one about the mindfulness project,
okay.
And one about the budgetary impact. So this is Desiree's computer right now, so if you want I can read the motion.
Oh no, you don't need to now.
Okay, I would love to send them to you, but I don't know how to upload it, so.
If you could upload them in the group. Once again, sorry to point you out, but like especially for the motions, it's really good to send them in advance so that everyone has a chance to read them as well. And I understand your committee just met, but try to make your committee meeting so that we can do this a little bit more efficiently. Hannah?
Since the campaigns coordinator is waiting for us to call them in, I would like to move that up as far to the agenda as possible.
Okay, I can put it as, is everyone okay with discussing campaigns coordinator first? Okay, perfect.
Somebody should message her.
Sorry?
Somebody should notify her back then.
I have her number. I told her it's a room change.
Okay. So we'll put that before, we'll just put it under guest speakers. Yep.
We're doing when are the interviews for the sustainability coordinators?
We have it as C on appointments.
And like presumably those people are waiting as well. Can we move those up?
Yeah, that is not a problem.
Chris,
Is that okay?
Sustainability coordinator?
Well,
Just want to make sure everyone's
It's
up.
in
What are you
appointments.
asking?
It's in appointments, Chris, so.
It's in appointments? Oh, yeah, it should not be in appointments, it should be in informational.
Oh, okay, so there's not. Okay, yeah, there's no interviews going on there.
We wanted to do that, but the person's not available today.
Okay, so that makes our lives a little bit easier. Though it is unfortunate, we will put that in informational. That makes makes our lives even easier. Yes, Maha.
Thank you. So there was a few things that were carried on from previous council meetings to today. And so in order to just, before we introduce any new business, I would like to move up those points first.
Okay.
So that includes pulling up minutes from, I believe, yeah, the Clubs and Spaces Committee. There was a campaign coordinator. There was like a few other things.
I have those both on the agenda. So I have campaign coordinator as being the first point. Clubs and Space Committee, we can dump that to the end because it's always like we deal with the reports after, even if it's from another meeting. Is there anything else?
From last meeting that was supposed to be on today.
Yeah.
No, I think that was. I think that I'm definitely forgetting something, but those are the only two that came to mind.
Okay, I've got them here, so that's good. Millie's.
I wanted to add just a point about talking about the Royal Olympic situation.
Okay, I'll put it under informational. Chris?
Yeah, just, I really like what Maha said. I just would like to, the only exception I'd say is to put the presentations first because people are actually ready to do those presentations. So campaigns coordinator, so the campaigns coordinator could leave, and then the presentations, so the presentation people could leave, and then we could get starting with all the old points. Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else to add, subtract, amend? Okay, so if not, I just need a motion to approve the agenda and all items under consent. Patrick, I'm so sorry.
Could you add finance presentation under the presentations one?
Okay. Is there a guest speaker for that?
It's Desiree.
Okay. Oh, okay. Anything else? Okay, so I just need a motion to approve, Elizabeth. Do we have a second to approve the agenda, all items under consent, Naomi? Is there any opposition to approving the agenda? Okay, so if not, we can start with our first point, which is campaign coordinator. If anyone wants to, sorry, that was Hannah, sorry, my mistake. But she's not here?
She's on the way for her to be here before we.
Is there
Is that
anything
the
we can do in the
motion?
meantime?
Okay.
So we're
Just
starting with.
to roll this along?
It was so fun, lawyer.
Okay, is everyone okay with starting with a really simple agenda point called 7A, Silk Fund Lawyer? And Chris will introduce it, and while Chris does that, I will post the agenda and do the things I do. Go ahead. Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Documents are.
You said in the email it's closed session.
I said I meant the documents.
Yeah,
So as long as we don't discuss what's in the documents, it's fine.
yeah, so I can introduce it. So hey everybody, so we were looking, me and Robert mostly Robert, we're looking for a lawyer for the Silk Fund Committee. That's good to have because one of the required members on the Silk Fund is a lawyer who has nothing to do with Concordia or the CSU. So it can't be the CSU lawyers, it can't be a lawyer at Concordia or a professor, it needs to be external. We found someone, his name is Tufik. We have his CV and his cover letter.
Yeah, sorry, I meant the contents of the document. Sorry, as long as we don't discuss like the personal information or the contents, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. So on that, I received the CV and cover letter today, right before the meeting. He said he was busy. He said he would send it on Monday, and then he said he got caught up in work. So I got it today, right before the meeting. There's two ways we could proceed. Either we could all take maybe 5-10 minutes to read it over and vote on it, or we could just say we're going to table it to next meeting. Personally, I'd like to get it out of the way. I don't think it's that contentious. So I would recommend we just vote it in. Well, we can take 10 minutes, we can motion for 10 minutes to read, and then decide.
Okay, is everyone okay? Yes, Maha?
I just have a question. Is this our only candidate right now?
So we found other candidates, but then we didn't really like what there were things that made us say maybe this person's not right, maybe this person's not right. But this is the only candidate we've come up with at this point.
Based on his profile, or have you guys actually interviewed him?
We did a phone interview.
We interviewed 2 other people, but we decided this person was the best suited for the job.
All right, thank you. So if everyone wants to take, is 5 minutes okay? It's just a CV and a cover letter to review the documents. If you could just put your placard up like this, and when you're done, you can put it back down.
Point of information.
Yes?
Do we need to go into a closed session to read the documents?
Yes, yeah, even if we don't have paper, actually, yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, okay, so
Yeah.
motion for closed session?
I second it.
Okay. This is not going the way I wanted. Can we deal with the closed stuff all at once? Is everyone amenable to that? Because I know that there's a couple of closed session things at the end. So just because I'm like, really want this to be as efficient as possible, can we deal with the closed session at the end? Like, there's one candidate, Chris introduced it, and then we can come back to it. Is everyone okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Sorry about that, James. I didn't mean to strike down your motion here and there.
That's fine.
Is Irma here?
No, it is not.
Move it along.
Isaiah called her earlier, so she should be on her way
Okay.
over to Mrs. Yaw's.
Is there anything else informational we can
Yeah,
do?
there's a few that I could get out of the way pretty quick. So there's the Board of Governors alternate update, and that comes from the Appointments Committee. So unfortunately, the minutes from the first meeting weren't available when we started doing our interviews. We did our interviews for the Board of Governors. Now, the motion we passed, and we forgot about this, said we need to pick 3 candidates and bring them to the council. The problem is that we totally forgot about this. We picked a single candidate, we approved them, we gave them the job, they're now approved on the Board of Governors. Meanwhile, all the other candidates were sent a rejection letter. So we're in a position where we needed to come clean to the council about this and let everybody know. I personally think he's a great candidate. The entire committee unanimously voted for him. So I just wanted to inform the council that that happened.
Thank you. Is there any questions or discussion? Okay, if there's nothing further on that, yes, Patrick?
Could we move to the governance review update then?
Yep.
Quickly? So,
Just want to make sure there's nothing else in Board of Governors. Okay, so if not, Patrick, you have the floor for governance review.
so if everyone remembers correctly, at the September meeting, Hannah decided to pull my report. I didn't know why, I was confused, but after speaking with her, she wanted an update on the governance review, which is perfectly fair because it was motioned to have it done in September. Basically, what's going on right now is it's sort of on hold. Policy committee is inundated with, I hope the committee can back this up, is that we are doing currently fee levy review applications, and this is taking up time. It wasn't the intention to have this, it was the intention to have it September, but things, as I spoke in the September report, things happened out of my control, but tried the best, and basically, I'll have a further update for later, but once the fee levy applications are done for the next October meeting, we will be going back to doing the governance review. The intention with putting this on hold is that we want to do this correctly, and we want to ensure that policy committee is consulted and that they are all on board with doing this governance review. But basically, that's what's going on. So yeah, I just want to give everybody that update.
All right, thank you. Dave?
All right, so if so just kind of fooling around the idea, if like fee levy applications are taking so much time, like I know it's part of policies committee's like mandate, and I was on policy committee last year and I did do fee levy reviews. I'm just even doing that is like I'm questioning why it's the job of policy committee to do that work. Because policy committee, like at least for me, there's a committee called policy committee is supposed to like focus on policy and writing policy, not reviewing fee levies. So we could, in theory, create an ad hoc committee and appoint to the ad hoc committee the power to review fee levies, called the fee levy committee. And so policy committee can get back to actually doing policy.
Patrick?
First of all, the first thing I would like to say, I appreciate James's intentions with what he's saying. I personally quite agree with it, and in the governance review, in the draft that I've made so far, is that would be the intention is to split off fee levy applications to another committee for the fee levy review. But at this current time, it doesn't make much sense as the work is already being done by policy committee to do that. It's a bit too late in the game to do that, but in future, we should be splitting it off. So I fully agree with you. But we just can't do that right now.
Thank you. Naomi? James?
All right, so in light of that, I would like to, motions are allowed from the floor, correct? All right, so I would like
If
to,
they're relevant.
yes, so I would like to motion to create a ad hoc committee for fee levy organizations, and their mandate would be to review All future applications, so the ones that are currently there, we don't want to, like, let's not split the work. The people that are working on the ones currently are going to work on the ones currently, but any new fee levy application is going to go through that committee, and it's going to be the same setup as a regular committee, so 4 members, 1 at large, and 1 executive. That would be the composition of that committee. The mandate would be to review and do all the work for the fee levy groups. The future ones, the current ones, can stay with policy
Is
committee.
this still a motion?
Yes. I'm just
Or
trying
is it
to,
your motivation?
the motion, I'm just trying to like get like the mandate correctly and like make sure it's part of the motion also that like the current ones stay with policy until they're completed. And then like all future fee levy applications this year are going to be done through this committee. Right.
Okay.
That can be.
Could you formulate that into something and then, like I can come back to you, but could you just like formulate it into like be
Writing?
resolved that we create a committee
I'll do that.
and then a composition? And then we'll just roll on with discussion. Patrick?
Can we move to table this to next meeting, because I don't feel like this is pertinent. Like this will just take up time, and we've been having endless discussions, so I'd like to move to table on this one.
Okay, to table to next meeting, you said?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a second to table to next meeting? Elizabeth, is there any opposition to tabling it to next meeting? Okay, so in that case, I'll put governance review or governance
We'll just say like
fee levy committee
Yeah.
to come back next meeting on October 23rd. Okay, is there anything further in governance review?
Well, anyways, just come back, so.
Okay. Is Ermac here now? Yeah. Oh, perfect. Oh, there you are. Okay. So in that case, we'll proceed with the agenda as planned and move on to campaign coordinator. And Hannah, your motion?
Okay, so I have a motion for that. So just read the motion?
Yeah, the one
Okay.
you had sent me.
Yeah, whereas the executive has decided on changing first the description and requirements for the campaigns coordinator position, whereas the campaigns coordinator gave in the resignation over 2 months in advance, but the executive did not handle this issue in an appropriate time frame, whereas this motion is in the spirit of alleviating the executive's workload and promoting closer cooperation between council and the executive, whereas the hiring committee for a regular full-time position is made up of, and I quote here, the collective agreement, 2 voting representatives of the employer and 2 voting union delegates, but it is not specified, end quote, but it is not specified whether the representatives of the employer have to be executives. Be it resolved that one of the 2 spots for representatives of the employer on the hiring committee for the campaigns coordinator position be filled by a councillor. Be it further resolved that the council decide on who this councillor shall be.
Right, does it have a second first? Or Maha? Your motivation, Hannah?
So I think first off, as all of you saw probably that email that we got, the campaigns coordinator gave him the resignation on August 2nd, so over 2 months ago, and the issue was only formally dealt with or started dealing with. The process was only started on September 20th, and I think that's not enough. Like, there's too much time for that passed there. It should have been dealt with in an appropriate time frame. Also, September 20th is before our last council meeting, where we had a whole agenda point on this issue, and in that council meeting, the changes that were planned for the description did not come up. I think that's inappropriate. It should have come up. Because of that, I think that the councillor should sit on this committee, because it has to get the process really started or get it done with, and as it doesn't specify in the collective agreement that it has to be 2 executives, I think it's a good way to get councillor to also not have because executives have told us that they feel overwhelmed sometimes, so this would also take some work off of them, and I think that. And I also think it's not great that, really bad actually, that the current campaigns coordinator was not talked to about this position and their ideas for the position.
Thank you.
Point of information.
Yeah.
Did everybody have a chance to, I was wondering if anybody had a chance to read the email that was sent from QP, the president of QP? I hope, can we have that information? Everybody's informed, kind of?
I sent it out right before the meeting. Has everyone read the email? Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. Are you satisfied with it?
Yeah, just because it helps with the discussion.
Okay. Isaiah? Was that not who raised their placard?
No, it wasn't.
Oh.
Sorry. It's like-
Just to be clear, this does count in your
I
2
know,
minutes.
it's 2 minutes. Oh, that reminds me. Can I motion to extend past 2 minutes, or does it have to go to another speaker's turn?
It would have to go to another speaker's turn.
Okay. So,
I can come back to you if you want.
please do.
Okay, Millie's?
When we were doing the lawyer training, like during council retreat, it did say, like the lawyers told us that it wasn't the role of board of directors to delegate and work with the micromanaging of the workplace, especially since the impacts of this have to go from beyond this year. I don't really think it's within council's right or like role to tell us like who we should or shouldn't hire, especially since you don't have to work with the next person day to day, and we do. So that.
Thank you. Patrick?
I move the table indefinitely.
Okay, do we have a second for tabling? Marin?
My motivation for this is that this is not the place for council. If you read the email that was sent out to all the councillors, they literally said, we are in negotiations, we are collectively bargaining. This is normal procedure for this union. It is not the place for council to be meddling within the affairs of hiring committees. This is for the day-to-day operation. There is a separation of powers that is for council between the executive and councillors. This is not a motion that should be passed. This will set an extremely bad precedent for it. I don't appreciate that, by
No,
the way.
I'm sorry, Patrick, it's not in regards to you, I'm sorry, this is
But
totally unrelated.
it's very disruptive. I do not appreciate that. Anyways, this is not the place for council. You have to respect executive precedents. Council stepping in for hiring decisions should be in the absolutely worst case scenarios when things are not working properly. We are not at that point, and this should not pass. I'm sorry, but if you have questions about what's going on with the campaigns coordinator position, you can talk to Isaiah. He was not even talked to for this motion. That is completely unacceptable, and I expect better from council. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Hannah?
On that, I think I totally agree that usually we should not get involved with hiring. But in this case, I think it's important because, as the email states, I think it's our collective agreement, Article 9.1. The employer must post the existence of the position at least 2 weeks before the departure of said employee, and the departure for the employee this time is October 14th. So this was not done because the position is not up yet. That can have legal consequences for the CSU if we don't post something. And the lawyers also said at that training that if we see that there's something that can affect the union, the CSU legally, then council has to step in. And that is why I think this is important to discuss in council, and why I think that council has not only the right but the obligation to interfere with this and do something.
As a point of information first, would you guys be amenable? So after we introduce this motion, before we begin debating on it, I don't know about you guys, but I would really appreciate hearing from the actual current campaign coordinator right now.
Right now, the motion on the table is to table it indefinitely, though. So we're not discussing the motion, we're just discussing, table indefinitely means like kill the motion currently. So that's, yeah. That's it. Emma? There is still a speakers list, though.
Can we move this into closed session? Because it's like internal matters. I think it's better to deal with it in a closed session.
Okay, is that a vote? You want to move to closed session?
Yeah.
Okay, is there a second? Salman, is there any opposition to moving into closed session? Okay.
Do you want me to stay for that? Sorry.
It would require a council vote
Oh.
in that case.
And then, I guess.
So if there's no opposition to closed session, yes, Hannah?
Can we amend it then that Ermac is allowed to stay in?
Okay, so there's a motion on the table to allow Ermac to stay in closed session. It requires a 2/3 majority under our standing regulations. Is there a second? Elizabeth, is there any opposition to allowing Ermac to stay in closed session? Okay, so that is that. Sorry if it's not the most efficient way to run a meeting, but we're in closed session, so I have to ask anyone who's not council or the executive, myself or the minute keeper or Ermac, since you've been granted permission, as well as JB and the Senate. to please leave the room. Thank you.
I'm the Vice President of the Des Hotel Sustainability Network at McGill. So essentially we're presenting a conference that is a collaboration, I'll go more into detail into this, but it's a collaboration between 3 universities, Concordia, HSA, and McGill. So we're joined by several of our colleagues here who are just standing there very happily. So yeah, that's something I'll touch on more throughout the presentation, but yeah, we represent 3 different universities.
So today we're going to be presenting on the Montreal Youth Summit on Sustainable Business. So first of all, just some background on JSEC for those of you who don't know. JSEC is a group of undergraduates at the John Molson School of Business that are actively addressing the integration of sustainability and business practices through a series of events and projects. Our vision is to see commerce operate in total harmony with sustainability. We believe that a sustainable future does not necessitate a bridging of the gap between business and sustainability, but rather a total integration of the two. So our mission, JSEC moves to demonstrate how sustainable concepts can be applied to business operations, while also showing how to leverage business frameworks to realize sustainable ideas. So in the past, it's been 9 years, we've held the Business Beyond Tomorrow conference. It is Montreal's longest running business sustainability conference, and it is JSEC's flagship event. Over 100 people have attended it, and now we want to take it to a whole new level for our 10th year. So we are presenting the Montreal Youth Summit on Sustainable Business.
Yeah, so thank you, Marcus. As I mentioned before, it's a collaboration between 3 universities. The driving idea behind this is really to bring together our three student communities that usually operate just totally in silos. So we are literally hosting the exact same conference at the exact same time. We're duplicating our efforts, and it would be much more effective to bring together the entire Montreal-wide community, and even much more fruitful to have students engaging across faculties, across universities. So that's really the driving idea behind this. It'll be on January 24th and 25th, 2020 at the St. James Theatre. So these are 3 organizations that are hosting it together. And yeah, we just want to highlight that this is really a collaborative effort. We've come together in the service of gathering a larger community behind this, because at the end of the day, the sustainability issues we want to tackle, it's not just about business, and second, it's not just about Concordia, it's not just about McGill, it's not just about HSA. So to gather all the youth together in Montreal and bridge some of those gaps, break down the silos, is what we're trying to accomplish here. So to give you a sense of kind of how we've conceived of this event and our intentions for it, day 1, the 24th, is meant to be an education day. So what we mean by education day is in contrast to the next day, which is a bit more hands-on. This is meant to be more lecture style, panels, that kind of thing. But what I want to highlight in this is that absolutely we are student organizations in business faculties, and we're focusing on sustainability, and it's a conference about sustainable business. But at the end of the day, the topics go beyond the private sector, right? It's not meaningful to talk about sustainability unless you're talking about a systemic approach, unless you're engaging with people from the public sector and the plural sector. So a couple things I'll hit on here are the ethics in AI session, the rethinking monetary value session, managing without growth, that's ecological economics, and finally impact of climate change legislation. So that's, to give you a sense of we're really trying to push some of the boundaries that typically you'd associate with a business conference, right? The second is we're calling it Empowerment Day because it's meant to be more hands-on style. It's meant for the participants to apply the knowledge that they gain the first day in kind of hands-on workshop style. So you'll see these three boxes. These are 4 workshops running simultaneously. And yeah, here I'll kind of hit on power of storytelling, building inclusive cities and economies, and then culture building for female leaders. So, this is, of course, there are some more business topics in here, but this is really about a comprehensive approach. And I want to drive that point home. Yeah, so our mission. So I've kind of gone into what educate means for us. It means, you know, a first day on kind of just like soaking knowledge in, having panels and that kind of, those kind of sessions. And then it means the second day being able to apply that knowledge and you know, in more of an intimate style workshop, something that's more hands-on. Our second mission is to inspire. So that's, first of all, through the caliber of the speakers, and I'll just show a bit of an example of that. But we're, you know, as you saw, we've conceived of the topics and the themes here to inspire people to think bigger than just what can corporate social responsibility do. You know, this isn't about, this is trying to go beyond greenwashing. This is trying to go beyond a lot of the connotations that you might associate with business and sustainability. This is trying to be a systemic approach, like I said. And finally, connect. So, of course, there's so much value in just bringing students from different universities together, but then there's also value in bringing students from different faculties together in different disciplines. So having, you know, a wide variety of topics is important to engage engineers and math students, art students, right? So that's another focal point of what we're trying to do. And yeah, I'll pass it on there.
Yeah, so currently we have 3 confirmed sponsors: Ville de Montreal, Canadian National Railway, and BDC. Currently, Ville de Montreal and Canadian National Railway, they're going to be sending us invoices, and BDC we're going to be entering a contract with. We're also in talks with Energier, Fund Action, Umalia, Impact Finance, and the Government of Canada.
So like I said, I just wanted to give you a sense of some of our speakers, so kind of the caliber we're engaging with. I'm not going to list them all. But you know, some of the institutions represented here are York University, there's Canada's Eco-Fiscal Commission, Force Jeunesse, Conseil Jeunesse de Montréal, which are both, you know, representing youth in Montreal in the public sector. So as much as you see a lot of big name companies here, you also see a representation of people from the plural and the public sectors, as well as Ashoka, nonprofit social entrepreneurship organization.
So I'm just going to go over the breakdown of costs and revenues. So if you look at our costs, a major fee is the venue. So it's going to be held at St. James Theatre, which is a pretty big venue. For putting on a conference with 500 people, we had a limited amount of options of where we could hold this conference. And we felt for our needs, the St. James Theatre was the best option. And then some other things I want to point out, we will be having a translation system. So since HSA is included in this organizing of this event, one thing that we really wanted to put emphasis on is making it a bilingual event, making sure that there is French and English representation, especially since we are in Montreal. So although our keynote speaker is going to be in English, we would like to provide a translation system so the French students will be able to learn from them as well. We also would like funding for eco products to make sure our event is run as sustainably as possible, because what's the point in holding a sustainable conference if it's not sustainable? So the breakdown of revenues, so we're going to have ticket sales, sponsorship, and then internal funding. These numbers are based off of our projections, and the internal funding is based off of what we got for our conferences in the past. So for Concordia, we got $3,000 of internal funding. This was from the Dean of Student Life. And then $5,000, $2,000 is what the other schools have typically gotten in the past. However, HSA actually just secured $5,000 from their faculty. So the breakdown of the tickets. So we're going to have early bird 2-day passes, single day passes, and then 2-day passes. Breakdown of the 500 people, there's going to be 375 students. We want to make sure that as many students as possible are attending this event. We're going to have 75 people from the community, so alumni that want to attend the event. And then also invited VIP guests and the executives make up the last 50, so a 500-person conference. So what are we here today for? We would like for you to partner with us by sponsoring our event. We're asking for $23,000. $3,000 is to cover the internal funding, and then the rest is going to go towards the venue deposit, catering costs, and then as well as a carbon offset. So to talk a bit more about those, the venue deposit and catering costs, these are amounts of money that we need to put straight up. They're down payments, and currently with sponsorships with companies, it's hard to get funding right away, and we need to put these down payments on right before we even sell any tickets. So your help would be greatly appreciated if you did contribute to this event. And then a couple other things. So right now our current food costs are calculated with discounts based off of what we've gotten in the past. However, this funding would help mitigate the risk if we did not get these discounts this time around. Another point to make is that since we are partnering with Humanitaire from HSA, they are a non-profit organization. So if we do run a surplus, we will be donating the profits towards climate action. And then for carbon offset, basically we're going to calculate all the carbon emissions produced by holding this event, which includes just materials that we need for it, and also a big thing is transportation. So although most of our speakers are from Montreal, some are from Toronto, some are from Ottawa, obviously there's going to be carbon emissions with them transporting here. So we would like to plant trees and create a carbon offset so that our event has zero emissions.
So here I just want to illustrate that, again, we're touching on a broad diversity of topics, and especially given your campaign on climate justice and sustainability, you can't just talk about climate action. As much as the climate strike was a huge success, and I think people are still it's just evidence of how engaged students feel about this right now, and that's why your campaign and this conference is coming at a really opportune time to harness some of that energy and all that interest and put it into action, and then have people engage across universities, have them engage with the leaders in the field who are who are applying these things and who are working toward these goals. And then of course I just want to highlight that partnerships for the goals is key, and this is our conference is a fantastic example of that. And even joining forces with you as well would be a fantastic example of that. You can't tackle SDGs unless you're crossing the traditional barriers between private, public, and plural, and that's really important to us. And finally, so this event will be certified by Concordia's sustainability certification as well as McGill's. So of course that includes the environmental impacts that Mark has highlighted. But I also want to emphasize, at least with McGill, it includes the considerations of representation and inclusivity on the speakers as well as on the attendees. So gender, ethnicity, language, these are all critical things going into this, and a certification, 2 certifications will be evidence of that. So these are things that we care about actively and are really important to us.
So we have also gotten some faculty remarks from the Dean of John Wilson School of Business, Anne-Marie Cortu. She gave us this backing, and we've used this quote for our sponsorship and speaker packages, so it's been included in everything we've been sending out. One thing I want to point out is the last sentence here. She says, the upcoming Montreal Youth Summit on Sustainable Business will provide students with an excellent opportunity to exchange ideas about how businesses can adjust their practices to help transition into a more sustainable world. So she has backed our initiative, and we are hoping that you will back our initiative as well. We would be very excited to be your partner in this event. Thank you for listening, and we're going to open it up to questions.
There's a bit of a speakers list. Do you want me to call them?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Elise?
So I have a pretty long list of questions.
Yeah.
So you said that you got money from CCSL in the past. Did you apply again?
So I'm going to ask some of our team to help out, because some people have been working more on sponsorship and more on other things. So
we have not yet for CCSL because we're hoping that this would cover the internal funding that we get from Concordia. However, if we did not get this funding, it's something that we would look towards yet.
Okay, because the CCSL application was due 4 days ago. So
Yeah, I believe they extended the deadline to November 1st if I'm wrong. Yeah. maybe it's something that we apply for next term then.
It would be after your conference, so we can't get it retroactively, but yeah, that's not the point. Did you apply to SAFT?
Not yet, no.
Have you asked SMU for money?
No.
Have you asked UDEM's union for money?
No.
Have you asked JMSB for money?
No, because we're all waiting on like kind of what we would be getting from this event. I've been talking to the director of student life though, however, about the funding that we got last year, and as we've been in communication about that, he just wanted to see where we get in terms of funding first to kind of contribute to the event.
Okay, so if there's 3 schools that are collaborating on this, why is CSU being asked for more than 1/3 of the money?
We've been asking the other schools as well. We just thought that this could be really in line with like your guys' campaign. And so I thought it'd be really powerful to kind of collaborate with you on this because it's our mission and your mission this year as well. And so that's kind of where this came from, asking you this money.
Okay, so with that, like, did you guys have any idea of where you wanted the money to come from out of the CSU, or you wanted us to figure that out?
Honestly, I wanted to leave that up to you guys. I know you guys have a lot of different committees and funds that you guys have. I'm really not sure where this could fall under for you guys, but whatever you think is the best allocation is really up to you.
So you said that if there's a surplus, that you would end up donating it. If the CSU does end up giving this amount of money, we would end up being the major donor. So would we get recognition for that donation? Since
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. You guys would be recognized as like a pretty big, yeah.
I thought something else that would add value is you could be actually part of making that decision of choosing the recipient.
Okay, and
Oh, that's time.
the last.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want me to put you back on?
Sure.
Okay, Naomi?
Were you guys going to, actually, can I give like half of my time to Melise to finish her question, or no?
If you want.
Just cause like, yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, so once again, as this, we would be like, I guess, the main sponsor, like what level of recognition could you offer us that would end up being worth being 1/3 of the money?
Yeah, so this is something that like, of course I haven't brought up with like the sponsorship team yet, but we could look into you guys being like the lead sponsor for the summit. And so it could be the CSU is kind of presenting this, or among the companies that is presenting this. We have a huge sponsorship package that I'm happy to send you guys. You can look through like our deliverables and what you would like to handpick from that. Part of the event is a recruitment fair, so totally you guys can have exposure there as well as a networking cocktail, things like that. It's something we're very open to. It's just something that we would kind of want to discuss with you guys before we really offered something big.
If we were to approve it, would it be possible for you to send that sponsorship package like right away?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Naomi?
Were you guys planning on asking McGill's union for her money, or just the like business parts?
So I don't know if you want to answer that. You have a DSM.
Yeah, I mean, coming from McGill, I have no sense that like this, this level of engagement with the topic is happening right now. And I am aware of kind of how tough, like at least within McGill, how we're organized, like we would only be relevant to the management student association, and we already fall under that as the Desautel Sustainability Network.
So you wouldn't be asking the student union of McGill?
No, it's not. No.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
So first, I just want to thank you all for coming out and for doing that wonderful presentation. It was really enlightening, and I think that this topic is so important, especially since it's definitely right in line with what our main theme is for this year. I think that my fellow counselors asked some of the major questions about sponsorship, so I wouldn't want to repeat that. But I am wondering about the past applications that you guys have put in, just if I could get some enlightenment about that, since the event is in January, which is still relatively close, and it is a bit close to the deadline. So I don't know if it was all put in the slideshow, but were there other places where you applied that were not included for sponsorship?
For sponsorship?
Yeah.
So yeah, we created a plan of trying to get the speakers at our conference to be our sponsors, and so we really developed this system of like from speaker to sponsor. Through our experience, we found that it's not working that well because it takes a lot for a company to say yes to a speaker, but a lot more to say yes to sponsorship. So right now, like our main kind of like approach has been trying to get these companies to sponsor our event. We're finding that it's not as effective, so this is kind of like our first step towards being okay, we need to look to other sorts of funding. We've looked towards a government grant on the Sustainable Development Goals that we do qualify towards. We're a little bit limited in terms of that because none of us are really registered as organizations, and so we can't really apply as an organization or as a company to get this kind of funding from the government, and so that makes us a little bit kind of not as great an applicant in their eyes. And there's also Quebec grants. We have a huge list of foundations that we've gone through. Unfortunately, because we're not charitable organizations, we're not really eligible for those. We looked at like the Ivy Foundation, the McConnell Foundation, at least 8 or 10 that we kind of tried to apply for, including the Conseil de Jeunesse. But because of little kind of key factors, we got a lot of responses saying that, like, you know what, you guys are close, but you're not quite eligible. And so, yeah, sorry.
Lindsay?
I have 2 quick questions. One, have you done this particular event before?
So we've each done our own version of this event. So
Okay.
last year, DSN at the Deshotel Business Conference on Sustainability, we had 250 attendees, like essentially half the scale of this. And then Concordia and S.G.W have done similar scale events as well. So we have plenty of experience coming into this.
So this is the first collective with
That's
the
correct, yeah.
university? Okay. Also, are you just having it exclusive for students from the 3 universities to attend, or it's open to the public?
No. So for the students, there was 375 tickets allocated to the students, and we are gonna set like limits for each school at the beginning to make sure that there's like fair representation.
Okay.
So we haven't decided the exact number, but maybe like 75 are allocated for, I should say 75 for Concordia, 75 for McGill, and then after those are sold, it's open to whichever students from any university. We did also have, I think it was 75 community members, and then also 50 VIP guests. So the main target is students, but there will be other community members.
Thank you. Thank you. Maha?
Thank you. Well, firstly, thanks again for coming here. Do we have any SSA people over here? Yeah? Okay, good. Representation's great. So, quick things. It was a great presentation. 2 things. 1, there's a typo in your date. But
Yeah.
2, about the budget. Sorry, that was a helpful tidbit. Anyways,
Yeah.
It wasn't as a critique. Just for other sponsorships. The thing is, though, is that when you're asking for quite a large sum of money, the budget that you have provided is not detailed enough, and I couldn't find anywhere. You guys didn't actually submit a detailed budget either. The only thing that we have is those 4 lines or 5 that you've written. And so what would be expected in this case is that when you're asking like a body to be a big sponsor, to be one of the main sponsors, it is imperative to detail what does that entail, like what does it mean to be a big sponsor, not just simply we'll send it to you. Well, like obviously, yeah, negotiations will be done throughout, but B, we need to see a detailed budget. We need to see exactly what the funds are allocated for, because just in case not the entirety of the funds can be guaranteed. What needs to be done is that we need to be able to say what isn't a high priority, what is absolutely crucial right now, like what can be done. And so that's what's going to help us. Can you guys either pull that up right now, or because that's also going to really help us make this decision.
Right. Yeah, so the information we've provided is what we have. I don't know if our finance can speak more to that.
We have a detailed budget that we could send.
That would be necessary.
It goes into breakthroughs of like the speaker fees. It goes into like where we're at in terms of food. Why is our marketing cost $100? It goes through all those different pieces. It also says like what is included in our venue and things like that. Is that something you guys want right now, or later on to be sent along with the sponsorship package?
Okay, so both things, it would be really appreciated if they were sent right away, because we need both of those documents before we're able to do a verdict, and I believe that time is of the essence for you guys as well. So that's why. And also, if ever per category, we can also send you guys like a template if you'd like, just to also highlight in another column what is a high priority, like what is a moderate priority, and then what is low priority, just so that we also know if ever it is in installments, for example, like what is most pressing.
That's time, thank you. Esther?
Yeah, so I had 6 questions. I was wondering for accessibility. You said that there was translation, which is great. Also, yeah, I wanted to thank you for the presentation, which I was going to do at the beginning, but I forgot. I was wondering for accessibility, how accessible it was, and also like for wheelchair students or people, for instance. And I was also wondering if you had a translator for deaf people and deaf people. Yeah.
Thank you. Hugo, can you talk to the venue?
So there are elevators inside the St. James Theatre, and it is accessible for people in a wheelchair. There is no translation for deaf people though.
Okay. Would you want to put that?
Yeah, if we did have the funding, yeah, absolutely, like, we would definitely want that. In terms of accessibility as well, we were keeping that in mind, especially with the ticket prices. If you go back, if you look at the ticket prices, they're relatively cheap for a conference of this caliber. For what you're getting out of it, a 2-day conference, you're getting meals, you're getting cocktail drinks at the networking cocktail. We think we're trying to make it as low as possible, so then no student would be able to miss this. So we want all students to have the opportunity to come and learn, and we really kept that in mind when coming up with the ticket prices for like low income students. Well, most students are low income.
Yeah, I was wondering, you said in the 23,000, you said 3,000 for internal funding. What's internal funding?
So,
So by internal funding, we mean like funding from the school. So last year when we had our conference, Business Beyond Tomorrow that you saw, we had a combination of the student life and staff giving us funding, and so we got around 3,000 for our conference last year. When we say internal funding, we mean like not from like companies or other grants that are outside the school.
Oh, sorry, that's fine. Do you want me to put you back on?
Yeah.
Okay, Hannah?
First off, thank you for the presentation, and also thank you all for coming. First off, yeah, I wanted to say that I think it's a great initiative, but at the same time, I really don't know where in CSU we can get 3,000 from, because we also only have limited money to give out, I think. Even though like we can, like there's always funds, but not for that much money maybe. And I think it's really important to not rely on just one source for money. So I think you guys should really apply to, like, as my colleague mentioned, to SAF, to CCSL, to all these other places, and to also not only have, to have it from different sources, and maybe also not just sources from Concordia, but other universities as well, because there is a big climate justice movement that's happening everywhere kind of right now, even though we have made that our campaign. Other campuses have similar things that are happening. LPSU Quebec is happening all over Quebec. McGill also has a La Fête de l'Université committee, kind of, a campus committee. So I think it's really important for you to branch out a little, because I don't think that 23,000 is like something that we can give just like that. So, and I also wanted to reiterate my fellow counselor's point that I think, I believe that ASL, as silent translation is really important, and can be a barrier for some people. So is there any way for students who can't afford $30 to get access to the conference, because that otherwise it is an accessibility issue that some people just can't afford that.
It's something that we would definitely try for. I know that CASA has a conference program, and we have every intention of applying to it. Now that we have more of the details of our event kind of laid out, there's still time to apply to it. And so basically, any John Wilson student that goes to this event can get reimbursed by CASA for going. So it does become free for them. Unfortunately, it's not extended to the rest of Concordia. That's going to be more research that we have to do, but we know that at least some John Wilson students, or all that apply to the CASA conference, will be able to go.
Thank you. James?
Yes, so I think this is a great initiative. Thank you guys for coming here. When it comes to kind of, I think right now, we have a general understanding that everybody here kind of wants to fund these people. The question is how. I would suggest that you, I think this is a great opportunity for example, external committee to pitch in some money for this, because once again, this is an external partnership that we're having, and we have a relatively large budget that's still relatively unused in external committee, so you can apply some of that money there. It has to be a separate application, but you have this could literally just be forwarded to to Isaiah, and he can forward that to external committee. I think, like, I don't think we need more than, like, this is more than, like, most external applications give us. So I think that's, just forward that, we'll have the meeting at external committee, and we can give you some money there. Other places we can give, there's one place we can give, but that I don't want to, like, start a precedent of just using up the entire endowment fund on conferences this year. Like, but this is just me kind of thinking out loud, like places that we can like pull that cash from. In theory, we can do it. I don't want to do it just because we've used so much of it this year already. I don't want to use up all of it. Like there are other, I guess there are other committees like CCSL. You're a bit late for that, unfortunately. But like there are other places that other committees. I think Sustainability Committee has a bunch of money they can use. So you can apply to Sustainability Committee. They have a sustainability budget that they can, obviously sustainability business stuff, cash from there. I think those are the two biggest places that you can probably apply to get most of it. Huh? CAF, yes, Community Action Plan. So you can also apply to CAF, apply to external, and apply to sustainability. Break up your proposal into like those three committees, and I think we'll be able to figure out a way to make this partnership work.
Thank you. So at this point, we're at the allotted time for the agenda point. There's no motion on the table, I just realized. Chris?
Can I make a motion?
Yeah, because we need to do that.
Yeah, so if the room is amenable, I'd like to suggest we do something similar to last time. Actually, Desiree, do you have a motion?
I don't have a motion, no. I just want to talk before we.
Okay. Say the motion, and if the room disagrees, we can throw it out the window.
Well, I do not have a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, I do not have a motion prepared. I just wanted to say things, but I'm
There's like a 15-person speaker.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll just finish. So,
Okay.
The motion was to refer this to Finance Committee for them to figure it out. And what I would suggest is to go into the Sustainability Fund or Sustainability Committee money and take from there. But that's not part of the motion. It's just refer it to Finance Committee, vague, broad, so Finance Committee could figure this out.
Okay, so be it resolved that the Montreal Youth Summit on Sustainable Business be referred to the Finance Committee. Do we have a second?
Point of information.
Yes. Who's there? There.
Could we, in theory, by motion of council, simply forward this to the three committees that I mentioned, CAF, Sustainability, and External?
It would be a little bit weird because we would be making a request on behalf of another organization, so like they would be able to get their own stuff prepared and all that, so it would be a
This is
little...
already prepared.
Desiree? Like, in theory, I guess, but right now the motion on the table is to refer to finance, who
Okay.
has to look at where the money can come from anyways, but
Okay.
yeah. Do we have a second?
I second.
Emma, I think that was you. And, okay, so the motion is to refer to committee. Is there any opposition to referring this to finance? Okay, so in that case, right now we'd have to make a motion to extend time. So how long do you want to talk about referring this to committee? 5 minutes?
10 more minutes.
10 more minutes? Okay, is there a second for 10? Marin, is there any opposition to 10? Okay, so it's 8:34. The issue on the table is just referring it to committee. Desiree?
First, I just want to thank the people for coming because it seems like a really cool conference. I like ethics in AI. It's a really interesting subject. All the good stuff. Can I ask them questions about their things even if it's not about the motion? No.
It's just referring to committee.
So referring to finance committee, I just want to speak to council. Our last finance committee, essentially, my councilors and I worked very, very hard to scrape the funding for a mindfulness project, essentially, because there's no space right now in the operational budget for just granting money everywhere. And we found money, but we still have to talk to the approval authorities of the budget lines. So it's a long, long process, essentially. So I would just like, if council, if we're willing to give out money from their operational budget, let's figure out right now what specific funds we're willing to target so that we know exactly where to look for it. Because just referring to finance committee, although it is our job, it is also a very tedious and awkward situation to look for money and then ask the person who's responsible of that fund, and then at the same time the project is reliant on this funding. Like mindfulness project, we'll talk about it in time, I have a motion prepared, but we're presenting a new budget to everyone, then it might go back and forth essentially, and this person is waiting to get money right now when I can't tell her for sure, yes, this is how much she'll be getting because I have to go back to council essentially. So I'm absolutely for the project. That's not the point of this talk. The point of this talk is just to say, let's figure out who will be targeting specifically. Much appreciated.
Elizabeth?
So I just want to echo the sentiments of my fellow executive. I think that the best thing you guys can do is actually apply to the committees that have funding for events exactly like these, and there are so many committees that we have. So I think that'd be definitely the most effective things you can do. I can give you a list. I think my fellow council already started it, but there's the external committee, there's CAF, which is the Community Action Fund, there's the Sustainability Action Fund, there's the Sustainability Committee, there's, if somehow this is related to the upliftment of BIPOC, Black, Indigenous People of Color, there's the BIPOC Committee. There's so many committees all under us that give funding monthly to events exactly like this. And I think applying to all those committees would be more effective than us having to sift through our budget and find where in specific budget lines we can somehow pull together money, considering your event is in January, which is relatively really soon, especially for planning an event as big as this. So if you guys could apply to those committees, or maybe if we could take this information and be able to deal with it in our different committees, I think you'd be surprised by how quicker that process will go for you guys. Yeah.
Thank you. Naomi? Sorry.
Oh, I think she had a point.
Sorry. Did you want to?
I just want to ask if you would recommend to break down what we're funds we're asking for each committee.
Yeah, I would say just having more specific budget lines, because since different committees have different mandates, each committee could say, okay, we can fund this specific budget line. For example, you mentioned having a forum of uplifting women. If it's specifically BIPOC women, women of color, then BIPOC can say, okay, we can fund this specific budget line because it's in line with what our committee stands for. And same for sustainability and same for external. So just more specific budget lines, and these committees meet every single month and go through applications every single month and have money set for the year just to fund events. So I would definitely suggest you guys do that.
Thank you. Naomi?
Yeah, I want to echo what all my colleagues said in regards to funding. Just for sake of time, I think that we kind of went around. Should I motion to close this agenda point? I don't know how that works.
The motion on the floor is already the table. So you there's
oh,
no
it's the
motion.
table?
Yeah.
To what?
To five, sorry. It's to refer to finance committee.
Okay, so can I call the question?
Yeah, you can. We'll
Okay.
say something before. Do we have a second?
Sorry.
Elizabeth, is there any opposition to calling the question? Okay, so in that case, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of calling the question, please raise your placards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, all those opposed. 1, 2. Sorry, raise them high. 1, 2, 3. And any abstentions? 1. 6 over 9. That is 2/3. Okay, so it gets the requisite 2/3. So the question has been called. Just in case I wanted to explain this. For a 2/3 vote, it has to get 2/3, but for a majority, it has to get 50% plus 1. So a 2/3 is a pass, but a 50% is not a pass in a majority vote. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so the question has been called. So all those in favor of referring this to the Finance Committee, please raise your placards. Sorry, yes?
Can we just repeat the motion on the floor?
Yeah, it's to refer this issue to Finance Committee. Right, so all those in favor, please raise your placards. 0. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and any abstentions? 0. Okay, so that motion fails. At this point, there are 4 minutes left. And I'll continue with the speakers list. Maren.
Okay, so in your presentation, I heard as you are requesting for us to be the biggest sponsor, and you guys aren't attached to any organization, and you're looking for a partnership to be able, in this big sponsorship, that we would be considered sort of a partner, kind of hosting the event, being and that you do need an organization to apply to government grants. You need an organization attached to that. I do welcome you because it is in our values to care about sustainability. Basically, we have a position on it. So I welcome you actually to come in our office, and we can definitely be a partner. I'm not sure how much everyone's going to decide to fund, or if they decide to fund this, but otherwise I do welcome you guys to come, and we could be the organization that helps you apply to the government grants to get funding from other sources. And I do have one thing for I guess the counselors. I think we kind of sort of created a precedent to use the endowment and for conferences, especially large-scale conferences on campus.
So I do recommend maybe someone could make that suggestion or motion, because the endowment fund is, I guess, our source of revenue, and we've made a precedent already on funding conferences with it, especially huge sums.
Thank you. Maha, sorry.
Well, first of all, again, thank you so much for coming here, and in respect to your own time, this message is now for fellow councillors. How much, we definitely support this initiative. Now that is undeniable. Now, how much funding can be granted, where that funding will be coming from, this is all an internal deliberation between us councillors that does not need to be made right now, but also cannot be made because we don't have the necessary documentation. So once you have provided us a detailed budget outline, once we have a more concrete notion of what it actually means to be a main sponsor, then that'll enable us to make a better debate. And so this is the message for you guys. For right now, let's respect everybody's time here. Thank you so much for having come, and this is a great initiative. This is a great presentation, and we are here to help you. So we will refer you to a list of all of the different types of committees, as my colleague has said, that you guys can apply to directly. But for now, if ever, all councillors can just have access to those 2 imperative documents. And then afterwards, we will have to discuss at our next meeting, because I know that time is of the essence for us all. Thank you.
Thank you. James?
Right, yeah, no, so in the interest of saving time, I think everything's been said. I cede my time to the chair.
All right. Sorry? Yeah, you were on the first one. That's the thing, is after the motion was made and then it got, sorry about that. My apologies.
Can I cede my time to Isaiah?
But, I mean, yeah, there's a minute left if you want to, not really, please don't do that, but.
So, yeah, I think the decision that council has to make per se, yes, we have the funding grants, but the funding grants are limiting to 1,000, 2,000. The ask here is whether or not the council itself, the actual CSU organization wants to step in and work with them. If it's a yes or no, because going down to the funding applications limits it greatly. So they're coming here asking for the CSU to step in and work closely with them. If so, and being a sponsorship, so it's hand in hand, showing that the CSU's first mover, similar to the Woodnote, similar to co-ops. We were the first people to get into initiative and start student associations, even though McGill's not doing it. If we show that we're pushing it forward, it is the annual campaign, it is something that we believe in, then it's just working and helping support our students in the different universities. Because going the funding route applications, it's kind of going to go 1,000, 2,000, maybe 3.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so at this point we are at the 10 minutes of extra time allotted. There's currently no motion on the table. Desiree?
Motion to add 10 minutes to the conversation.
Okay. Do we have a second for 10 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes? Is that?
I'll say 5.
Okay, so a second for 5.
Points.
Sorry?
Can I make a point? If
Yeah.
ever, so while
But I mean, is it about time?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is more of an advice as we proceed for all councillors. We can discuss this topic as well afterwards, but for right now, while we are in their presence, unless you have a direct question to them about this presentation, then use your time for that. That's what I would suggest, and then afterwards we can make a motion and discuss the topic afterwards.
Okay, so there's 5 minutes. Okay, so is there any opposition to 5 minutes? All right, so at 8:50 and 15 seconds, we'll continue with the speakers list. Marin.
Sorry, what's the speakers list?
The speakers list, just to clarify, sorry, I won't have this in time. When the motion was made, everyone who was on the original speakers list, it moves to a different one. So you may have thought you were on the speakers list, but the second a motion is made, you have to raise your placard again if you want to talk to it. So speakers list right now is Marin, Maha, James, Desiree, Naomi, and Hannah. Okay, so Marin.
Receive my time, Esther.
Okay, can we do this one more time and then never again, please? Esther?
Sorry. I was just wondering if this was a volunteer position or if you guys are paid, and if you are paid, where are you getting the funding?
I'd love to be paid. I think we all would. No, this is volunteer. I think this is completely
volunteer for all of you, or do you get
Yes.
credits or
No.
no? Nothing? No. Okay, just for the joy of it.
Yes.
Perfect.
All passion projects.
speak?
Thank you. Maha? Okay, James? Yeah. Or just point of information?
Yeah, just really quickly, like a little point of information. Just for reference, SAF had given somebody $10,000 last year, so it's still a good opportunity. Just like the, yeah, that.
Thank you. James?
Right, so this is somewhat related, but since this is in relation to, like, I'm gonna make a quick point about like all these conferences that we can fund. Now, I floated the idea for like last year, a bit wasn't very receptive, but maybe we can be more receptive to this, perhaps creating a specialized fee levy in order, for example, to specifically fund conferences, speakers, and all this other stuff. That's an idea that I've had for a while. I'm just putting it out there. This would also be like a great thing, maybe like an optional fee levy for like people, a few cents per credit. We'll have like a decent budget to like do conferences and invite speakers to campus and do a bunch of other stuff with it. That's just my point. That's it.
Thank you. Deborah?
I had a question. You said you had 3 confirmed sponsors. What, do you know how much you'll be getting from them?
Total 11,000.
11,000. Can you go back on the list?
Yeah.
On the
So it's
the
Fields
sponsor?
of Montreal,
Yeah.
CN, and BDC.
Okay.
And then we are in talks with the ones below.
And then, sorry, your slide where you had breakdown of revenues. Okay, so if you're getting 11K from the external grants, are you gonna go for, you will go for like companies and foundations if?
Sorry, for the sponsorship?
Yeah, for the we're
34,000?
part of the sponsorships, right, in this
Yeah.
situation?
And like with the 23,000, it would cover the internal funding from Concordia.
Okay,
So it'd be both.
okay. And yeah, just to speak about SAF, they have given a lot, and for like one-day conference like you, they can give from $1,000 to $5,000. Yeah, so it's a good thing. And
did you want to?
Yeah.
I answered that? Yeah. It was really not our intention to come here and like just be like, yeah, we haven't applied for anything.
Yeah.
Like I said, like we had a strategy of going from speaker to sponsor.
Yeah.
Staff has absolutely been on my radar, but like ever since we started the project, it was more like I wanted to see where we would get in terms of sponsorship to really approach staff and be like, you know what, we've done our work,
Mhm.
and then this is what we want to come to you with, and we want to make our idea happen. So it's absolutely on the radar. It's not like it hasn't been thought about. It was like I said, we were just thinking of speaker to sponsor, and then as soon as we're like, hey, this is not working as well, like the CSU, this is a campaign, this would be a great opportunity for us. So this is like our first step into coming in towards like the Concordia kind of community for funding.
okay, so it's just essentially trying to get the most funding as possible until breaking down what you have left to the other people
Exactly. Like we
afterwards.
said, like right now our budget, like there's discounts on the food, and we want to add things that are making it more sustainable, like the carbon offset. But because we're already looking at a lot of money, it kind of scared us to add those things into the budget, because we're like, how are we going to raise this much already? So once we have the funding, absolutely want to add more and more into our events and make it more sustainable. And like Marcus said, we can't break profit on this event. So everything that we do break profit for, it's not our intention. It's going to get reinvested back into towards like climate action or a charity of your guys' choice if you choose to fund this. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Elias, we haven't heard from you.
Yes, so is it possible for me to propose a motion here?
Yes.
So I would like to suggest a motion to perhaps table this point to a later point, once the documents regarding a more detailed funding and once applications to perhaps different funding bodies have been provided and distributed, so that we can make a more informed decision.
Would that be tabled until next meeting then?
It would be until, probably.
Okay.
I'm assuming we would get the documents by then.
Okay, perfect. Do we have a second? Salman, do you want to motivate? I already did. But...
I think I did, yes.
Okay. Is there any opposition to this motion? Okay, so in that case, it carries unanimously, so it'll be tabled until the CSU has received the documents and they've been distributed and looked at. So if you want, you can send them to me, you can send them to Isaiah, who can then forward them to me, and I can send them to council as long as they get to us. Yeah?
Do you guys set council meetings based on these applications, or do we wait until your next fall council meeting to kind of come back to this topic?
So we have a council meeting scheduled for the 23rd of October. I don't know what your time frame is.
That'd be fine for us.
Okay, perfect. That works then. Desiree, did you want to?
I just want to say, Thank you for coming, and it's just like you caught us in a time where we're just figuring out how to fund projects without saying, yes, we'll give you money, and then figuring out. So it's not like a bad, everyone's really interested in what you're doing. It's just literally yesterday, or like we cannot just say we're gonna give money without figuring out where it's gonna come from. So that's where it comes from. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for coming. Yes.
Thank you so much for coming. The thing is this, the CSU office is always open for you guys. You guys can always come to the exec, meet them to discuss with them your project, and also like while they are working on your thing, that you can also come to the office, you know, like to get more detail on where you can get the budget, what are the other committees, what are the other opportunities that you can get from the university.
Meeting space.
So,
Meeting space.
meeting space.
And meeting space.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you guys.
And have a great evening.
She's the president. She just flew in from Vancouver, so that's why she would be doing this presentation.
Did you want to start presenting? Okay, I sent it to council and
And I'm somehow very comfortable in my bubble. Just presentation.
Okay, folks, our next presenter is just going to set up at the computer.
We did 5 things.
Sorry? It's going to be more than that if it happens.
Yeah, sure. You meddle with us. You're one of them.
So you missed us not giving us.
Where's the water?
But we didn't say no.
It was here.
We don't have it.
I was just drinking water.
It's totally empty. Extra water. It's kind of an awkward room, so yeah, maybe.
Do something with it. Can we just get our water? No, the tea's still there.
You're like,
Yeah.
We went on a whole photo shoot with my little girl.
Yeah, so right now, what they're hoping is, like, it has to go through referendum. But the thing is all they're asking is about the easement. So like the bylaw changes, yeah, have to go through policy. Yeah, so you collect signatures, what happens is, like, so it's in the bylaws, you collect signatures, and then they have to go to council and just present it. Like, there's no, like, vote on it, they just have to come to council and say, like, we're going to do this. And then, okay, and then the,
Nothing is fine.
yeah, exactly, it, like, you'll even see in the question. All right, folks, so if you can turn your attentions to the front, we're gonna be doing 5D and 5E at the same time, and Chris is here to present them.
All right, everybody. My name's Chris, as you probably know, because we've been working with each other for a very long time. This is Danielle. She was on the team Cut the Crap during the election. And today we're bringing you a presentation about 3 referendum questions. All 3 pertain to the campaign promises of Cut the Crap. We've been splitting the labor, like when you're sponsoring a petition by enacting bylaw 9.6.2, you're doing it as a private member, and that's how we're doing it. So I'm not doing this as the general coordinator, I'm doing this as a student and as a member of the CSU, just as Patrick's doing Fall Reading Week as a student or a member of the CSU. And the reason we're doing it this way is by petitioning and get people involved, and if any of you believe in these causes, you're free to join us with the petitions. So we've created a package that includes the question I presented last Last special council meeting, it was online opt-out, but included in this, we also have faculty equality and presidents and VPs. So to start, we'll start with online opt-out. I already made this presentation, so the idea is that there are currently fee levy organizations. You're allowed to opt out. The current process is burdensome and inaccessible, and a lot of people don't even know that fee levies exist. And because of that, fee levies are rarely accountable to students, and some are, some do a great job. We believe they're going to continue to succeed, as we've seen at other universities across Canada. However, we want to be able to give students the ability to opt out easily and efficiently, and in turn, this will educate and inform students of fee levies and allow students to make their own choices. So we've all seen this, but we wanted to include it in the presentation because
They're all together.
yeah, it's a package.
It's a package deal.
So as you probably saw, the question was, do you support Concordia University bringing the opt-out process online for student fee levy organizations? And this includes the caveat, which is in the preamble, that the new system would allow you to opt out of each organization individually. Before opting out, students will be informed about what the organization does, and the system will be created in consultation with all fee levy organizations. So this isn't just a steamroll, let's not pay attention to anybody and try and get a system through that works against them, but to do what we believe is right, but in the most responsible way possible.
So the second one we're going to be doing, the referendum, is faculty equality, which you probably all saw on our platform. And what faculty equality basically is saying that if you look at our current council that we have right now in this room, there seems to be an issue here, as mostly it's all arts and science, and I'm pretty sure that there is definitely a lack of JMSB representatives, Cody representatives, and fine arts representatives. And I could even go further and say there's a lack of science representatives, because I wonder how many people in this room are of science background. One. Another issue. 1 out of 12.
That's an issue.
Because I'm in science technically.
We're in social sciences.
Okay. Social sciences is not what we're talking about.
Anyways, this is, we have questions later. So, this is here. As you can tell, there's a voting block. And that's what we're trying to make sure that JMSB, engineering, and fine arts feel like they have a representative say in the council. And even me, I felt like I didn't back before. So I would like to have a more equal council. As we all know, it does not represent the student body, and there's a massive voting block, like I said before, and our solution is to make sure that the faculty should be all equally represented on the board that we stand here. And that means that we need to change the composition of the council to be even. What does that entail? This is what we provided. We want to split science and arts into 2 different faculties. We want to make fine arts 20%. So that would be 3 fine arts, 3 JMSB, 3 Gina Cody, 3 science seats, and 3 art seats. That will make sure that every student has the ability to represent their faculties in the way that they want to and not feel pressured by any other faculty in the council. This is what we want, and this is the best way to get that to happen. And this is our referendum question that we're going to be presenting.
So it will look like this. This is what we're going to be submitting to the Chief Electoral Officer.
Do you support giving all faculties equal representation on the Council of Representatives by changing the structure to 3 art seats, 3 science seats, 3 Gina Cody seats, 3 JMSB seats, 3 fine arts seats, and 1 independent student seat? The Student Council, and this is the preamble, the Student Council is elected annually by the students to supervise the operations of the CSU. The Council has many responsibilities, including the distribution of funding to all student clubs and associations. The Student Council has an unequal number of seats for each faculty. The following was the Council of 2018-2019. These are the numbers here. This is not including independent students, and we usually don't have them. We are proposing that each faculty get an equal number of seats, 3, on the Student Council. Arts and science will be considered as 2 separate faculties to continue that representation of even the Loyola campuses. And finally, we're going to have this representation at the end, if they support this as students. Sorry for the question. Next.
The last one's presidents and VP. So this isn't just about changing the titles. This is about changing the entire executive structure to deal with the inefficiencies that I've seen, personally. And it has nothing to do with the people on the team. We're all working against, it's as if we're trying to practice for running in mud, in my opinion. And that's never good. Or like in a swamp, let's say it like that. So, one of the biggest issues we have is what we've been calling the 5 silos. So there's 3 tasks: relationships, events, and funding. And currently, 5 of the executive positions, 5 out of 8, are doing these 3 tasks. So what does Patrick do? He should be organizing academic events. He should be having relationships with the GSA and the university administration. And he should be giving out funding for different initiatives, or at least maybe that's been recently stripped, but that was the case for a very long time. There's external mobilization coordinator. What do? They organize events, campaigns related, Get Sustainable, Get Radical last year. They handle relationships with all external bodies, and they give out funding. What does the sustainability coordinator do? Events, relationships with sustainable-based groups on campus, and they give out funding and now bursaries. Loyola coordinator, what do? They organize Loyola events. They have relationships with Loyola organizations, and they give out funding with the Loyola committee to Loyola-based groups. What does the student life coordinator do? It should just be events, but instead it's relationships, faculty associations, events. Yeah, they're doing events while 4 other people are doing events. And then on top of that, they're giving out funding with special project funding and soon probably the competitions fund or external, depending on how that works out. So that's the 5 silos, and we call it silos because everybody's in their own silo, right, doing the same tasks. So the problem on the top, as I just explained, you have, for example, the external and mobilization coordinator doing those 3 tasks, and on top of that, managing an entire department. That's a hefty task. What we want to, and this is this is the second issue. So the first one's silos, the second one is management. So when you have a whole department under your wing, you should be focusing on exclusively managing that department. So it doesn't really make sense to have someone who's doing events, funding, relations, and managing an entire department. What makes more sense is creating executive positions that are solely based on management, because it's very hard to manage a group of employees and get the best out of them and make sure that they know what they, it's bad for the employee, by the way. Imagine you go into work and your boss is not there because they're in a meeting, or they're in a committee meeting that goes on for 8 hours. Like, that's not productive. That doesn't contribute to a good workforce. So basically we're creating 2 executive positions, VP Communications and VP Mobilization and Sustainability, who will be exclusively overseeing departments. That being the Communications and Design Department and the Campaigns Department. And then in general, the executive structure is changed from the top to the bottom. We're going from 8 positions: General Coordinator, Finance Coordinator, Internal Coordinator, Academic Coordinator, Loyola Coordinator, Sustainability Coordinator, External Coordinator, and Student Life Coordinator, to President, Finance, Internal Relations, Events, Communications, Mobilization, and Sustainability.
Also, I want to add a point, that I remember in my first year at Concordia, I looked at the CSU website, and most students know they have no idea who the heck to go talk to, because it's super confusing. I don't know what any of this means to me. I was trying to find the best person to talk to understand how to get involved, and I had no idea. I was like, I don't know at all. Even just the president, I was like, who's the president? And I was like, okay, that's really hard for me to understand. I bet everyone else felt that way in the first year. So the best thing we could do is to make it easier for them. And to me, this looks really easy.
Yeah, I mean, we forget, I remember my first year, I saw VP Internal, I was like, what's that? Take that to the next level where there's academic and advocacy coordinator. I have no idea what that does. Even myself, I was just sitting down trying to understand what these jobs should be, rather than the random collection of tasks that they currently are. And I'm like, what does internal coordinator mean? I mean, apparently it means clubs, right? It's not very straightforward. What does academic and advocacy coordinator? Apparently means going to Senate. Who would have thought that, right?
Services.
So what makes more sense is relations. What do they do? Relationships. Events. What do they do? Events. Communications. What do they do? Communications. Mobilization, sustainability, probably a bit more difficult, but you could look at it and you kind of get the point. There's some activism going on there. So it's a lot more simple and clear, and we think people will be able to actually understand what we're doing, and also we're going to understand what our roles are, because they'll be a lot more clear-cut and straightforward, and not everybody doing the same tasks. And by the way, when everybody's doing the same tasks, you're walking all over each other's toes. If we're all planning events, we're not going to, it's hard to be very organized and have all the events lining up in a way where we're not interfering with each other. So here's the last thing, the referendum question itself. As you can see, we highlighted the siloing, and at the bottom you have the silos gone. And in addition, the two departments, campaigns and communications, have been dedicated to 2 executive positions. And the question is, do you support the following proposal to change the CSU executive positions from 8 coordinators to a president and 6 vice presidents with more specialized tasks? And this preamble with the image will be included. And that's it.
Yeah. All right, so I saw there was some placards up. So I won't count this in time, but let me just read to you bylaw 9.6.2 for your information. The purpose of their presentation is to allow for discussion between council and the promoters and to solicit feedback on the proposed question. The Council of Representatives shall have no decision-making power regarding the wording of any question presented for discussion, nor over the ability of the promoters to pursue their petition, nor over putting of that question to referendum. So folks, I know this was explained last council meeting as well by Rory. So there's no motion, no decision going into this. It's literally just to solicit feedback. So I'm going to cut this off at 20 minutes because, or else it's just going to be talking. There's no decision that's going to get made. So if everyone's okay with that, we can open debate. Millie's.
So who's writing up the new positions, and will there be anything like in writing to ensure that people actually do things at Loyola?
Yeah, so how we currently envision it is that, I mean, we're not at the writing stage yet. First, we're just asking students, like, is this something you like? That's what we're currently doing. In the writing stage, I'd like it to be in the VP events job description that they must plan events downtown at Loyola, maybe even including something on an even split.
Okay, and I just want to say that I like the distribution for the Faculty of Quality, especially if the Faculty of Quality was planned in a way that didn't silo arts and science. I believe that there would basically be like a 2% chance of ever having a science student again on council, because naturally the art students outweigh us. So I really like the fact that like science students were taken into consideration.
Thank you. Esther?
Yeah, I'm just gonna, sorry. Also a bit concentration. Yeah, I was just wondering for the 3-3-3 split thing. We're supposed to be council representatives, and we're supposed to represent students, and therefore it should be democratic, and we should represent the number of students. And this is why it's split, and this is why there are more arts and science students. And also, for the last elections, it's because engineer students and JMSB students did not run for the positions, and that's why there aren't people there. It's not because not because there's a lack of seats for them. So. Yeah, just to say that there's a reason there's a cut, and there's a reason why there's more arts and science students. Yeah, this said I have more things to say, but can I be later on?
Great, thank you. Victoria?
Okay, I'm so proud I wrote notes this time. So, I just wanted to say that not all JMSB students feel that way. Our seats aren't filled because it's not of like a proportion thing, it's more of a culture thing. It's like a lifestyle difference thing, a work ethic thing. It's about like what our priorities are at. I was like, anyways. This also leads to people sitting at the table. Essentially, you'll have less probabilities of getting onto the board if there's an equal amount of representation on each faculty, because there'll be 4 seats. We currently have a system where it's all proportional, meaning I have as good as a chance of getting on council as anybody else in any other faculty of getting on, because the amount of seats are proportionate to the amount of people in my faculty. Okay. Yeah, so obviously there's no JMSB students here, but again, I'm thinking this is more of a cultural problem rather than a systematic, well, besides you, and like, I don't know what you're doing here. But, with that said, now you threw me off. But anyways, the other thing I have to say though is structurally wise, like I do agree with the president and internal and all that, because we are a business, so we do need to start acting like one. A lot of people understand what a VP internal are. They understand what VP Communications, external. So that is I very much support that. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Did you want to respond?
Not really. There was nothing to respond. Well, I mean, you can tell me how you feel.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I agree. It's totally a culture problem. And that's actually what I realized when I started thinking about this, brainstorming with Danielle and also other members of the team. Why is there that cultural problem? And I think the reason it exists is because JMSP students look at the council and they go, why do I want to be on that? I'm just going to get outvoted and outgunned, and if the whole room doesn't share my opinions, like, I'm not going to want to talk.
Can I respond?
If it's like 2 words.
But like. What I was going to say to that is, yeah, fine, but wait,
I can put you back on if you want.
Yeah, just put it back on after.
Okay, thank you. Naomi?
Thanks for the presentation. But I just want to remind councillors that this is, they're just informing us that they're doing a referendum question. So although it is good to talk about this, like at the end of the day, it's going to go to referendum whether we agree with it or not. Students can decide on what they want. And for the last 2 questions, it's a bylaw change, so it's going to have to come to council. So with all this in the last 2 ones, they're bylaw changes. So with all this information, I would just encourage everyone to like think about this until we actually have to vote on it, because like right now, like I disagree with many things on it. I don't think that the faculty representation is actually proportionate, and I don't agree with the fee levy opt-out, although I don't think I have much of a say on that. But regardless, it's gonna have to come through council. We're gonna have to vote on it. So it's good that we're voicing our opinions, but also like let's not spend an hour talking about this, because we're gonna have to vote on it, not today, but like in the coming meetings. And yeah.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I guess I would echo the sentiments of my fellow counselors. I guess I also just want to understand more clearly what the logic is behind the equal split, mostly because since it's not accurately representing the proportion in terms of population of the student body, I just would like to hear more about how this would somehow make it better, like the culture better, I guess.
Okay. So, yeah. I think what really matters, like in the ideal world, the current system we have is fine, because every seat is filled, and chances are, you know, people don't feel like they're not being represented. The problem is that's not happening, and I think it's just ingrained in people at this point. At least I feel this way when I speak to others. That if you're not a political science student or an English student or sociology student or creative writing or English student, which is typically the people who are representing from arts, I mean, I've looked at the stats throughout the years. If you're not one of those, or in the in crowd, or you know someone, or you know a lot of people, like the common assumption is you aren't going to have much say on the council. And I saw last year, like the saddest thing, we started in early June 1st, 2018. We had 6 engineers, and then 5, and 4, and then 3, and then 2, and then James Hanna. That happened all before September 2018.
Okay.
All before September. Yeah.
Okay. I understand where you're coming from. I just personally feel like this type of culture change isn't going to be fixed by having this amount of seats. I also feel like there have been some other very serious culture issues in council, specifically spaces that have been very harmful to women and people of color, which I think are more imperative cultural issues. I think those things haven't been addressed. I just, like personally, I feel like a lot of people don't feel like their voices are heard in council due to many different issues. And I'm just concerned that this is the approach, and I just really don't see the benefit. In addition, in response to the president and VPs, I think that Concordia specifically encourages non-hierarchical structures for a reason, to decentralize power, and I feel like that's shown through the number of cooperatives we have here, and that's like what's very distinct about our university. And I think that's something that we should keep. I don't think we need a business model. I think we need a model that's very specific to like our visions and our positions. So that's really just my main take.
Thank you. Salman?
thank you for the presentation. I'm not gonna discuss about because this is a referendum question. Just a quick question for your equal representation. So you have fine arts, GMSB, Gina, Cody, arts, and science. What about independent students?
Yes,
So
oh, do you want me to answer?
yeah. So like, the independent students should be represented as a like counselors because like I don't see them like in your representation and neither outside.
Type in independent.
Yeah, sure. And beside that, like I second one of my counselors. Like a representation is just like number of like students. I like this idea. This was one of my platform, but there should be like more representation, not just 3, because it's like we are representing a larger number of students. So 3, 4 to 5 like representation each faculty would give enough representation in the council at whole. And that's it. That's what first question was a direct question. It's like why there is not independent students.
Yeah. So there is independent students in the model. We were thinking of adding it into the pie. The problem is we couldn't figure out a way to add it in that made sense. We were thinking in the middle, but we couldn't figure out how to do it in Word. Honestly, that's something we could look into adding. I mean, if we have enough time. But as you can currently see, there's a little asterisk saying charts do not include independent students. And at the top, it does include in the question, which is the most important part, 1 independent student seat. And the reason we want that is because it's currently an even number, and they would be the tiebreaker.
Well, why not equal representation? Because you are talking about equal representation, so why not independent students have an equal representation in the council?
Well, honestly, because independent students, like, first of all, we haven't had one run in a very long time. So, and second of all, they're currently declining in their numbers.
Thank you. Sorry, that's time. Emma?
Yes, I want to say that I know that this is just a consultation of the larger body of the students, but we still have to run by elections to fill empty council seats. I don't think that the problem is right now faculty inequality, but the problem is more of the political culture of Concordia and how students from different faculties see the use of being involved in the CSU. So while it's good to be asking this question to the students, I think that this is just a recommendation from a counselor, but to address the problem of the political culture and encourage more student involvement so that we have more engineers, GMSB students that get involved into the CSU.
Thank you. Elias?
Thank you. So I would just like to say that I really love the idea of splitting the massive arts and science into arts and sciences. And I was just wondering if you thought about doing that split, but keeping it proportional to the number of students in each category, and proposing it as well, like in the referendum. So I guess it's a suggestion question. So what do you think of that, actually?
Wait, could you explain that?
Yeah. So essentially what you did is you split arts and sciences into arts and sciences separately, and then you attributed an equal amount to each category. So what if you kept that first part, but you didn't for that second, and suggested it as an option on the referendum? It's a suggestion. I'm asking.
Okay. Well, the reason we did split arts and science, because at first we had it as arts, fine arts, GMSB, Gina Cody as like 50-50-50, and we were like, the only thing that wasn't represented yet was science, and we took that into consideration, as well as the fact that it becomes more proportional for the actual representation of the school when you do this. If you look at the numbers today, this is pretty close to almost exactly the representation of art, science, fine art, GMSB, and Gina Cody, which is why we are looking, this is why we ended up with this model, but we want to keep it equal to make sure that, one, there's going to be more competition within the elections. And that means that like more people are going to want to get involved because they're going to feel like they're going to have a say and be important in the student union. Right now, a lot of GMSB students don't think they're not going to have much say in it. And so keeping it 3-3-3-3, I think is really, really important with the equality of it. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, no, lovely. But just wondering, would you not like to add it as another option to get more information, like a better opinion of what the students think? It's a suggestion.
We can look into it.
All right, sweet, thanks.
Thank you. Maha?
Thank you. So many things. All right. First of all, I agree that there is a lack of representation right now. There are so many empty seats that need to be filled. However, I think that we have very different definitions of what an equal representation truly means. Maybe you guys can't understand, but allow me to put it in perspective for what it means to be a visible minority, to be an ethnic minority, or to be like any, to be, yeah, that's the thing. Like when you are an ethnic visible minority, when you are part of either an LGBTQ, when you are a religious minority, when you are even a gender minority, and the fact that in positions of power, how often do we see ourselves reflected in that? Just to speak to the importance of being able to see yourself represented and in the highest governing body at the school, what it means. That is something that needs to be taken into account. The fact that there are more arts and science students, the fact that there are more arts and science counselors is directly proportional to the amount of arts and science students. If there was more JMSB students, then there would be more JMSB counselors. And this is a formula that proves equality, because this is what's going to show that we are all represented. How is it going to be fair to have other faculties who don't face the same issues vote on matters that affect a lot more people, and yet their voices are accounted for as less, their votes are counted for as less? So that is not proportionate whatsoever. So there needs to be equality here and representation. So that is number one. Also, we have a problem as in we need to fill in seats. We have by-elections coming up. And instead of hearing solutions as to how to get the CSU more out there, how to get more people involved in student politics, how to reach all students, instead of finding these solutions, structural change is not going to fill in these seats. I can absolutely guarantee you that. We need to focus on marketing. Maybe if a communications position was filled, that would help.
Thank you, that's fine.
Thank you.
Hannah?
So first off, I wanted to say that arts and science, the faculty of arts and science is divided into three major departments: humanities, social sciences, and sciences. This is not represented in your splitting up of arts and sciences. I do see the value of splitting up those two, but at the same time, I think then you should make social science and humanities two different things, because they are two different things. They're not the same thing. Being in two of these, I can attest to that. And then also, in general, this right now, in the ideal situation, we would have 30 counselors. This only leaves room for 16 counselors. That is so much less. That makes the CSU less democratic than it is right now, because it is less representation that we can have. Overall, this whole thing makes it less of a representational democracy. And I think, as has been mentioned before, our goal here is in student politics to have democracy, especially at Concordia. We have for a long time been in the Anglophone Quebec context, one of the schools that very much likes democracy and student politics. So I think that's really important to keep the democracy and not have it be less democratic in that way. And yeah, as I mentioned before, it's a marketing problem that there's not enough JMSB and Gina Cody and fine arts people in this room. It's not a structural problem. And then to the third referendum question that you have about the silos, I think that's an issue of communication then. That first off, there's different for the relation part. There's different relations or different events that are organized. Let's go to events. So, I don't know. Also, it makes it less democratic again to have a more hierarchical structure. Also, last point.
Thank you, that's time. James?
Two words.
Okay, 2 words.
The questions are not neutral. They're very biased.
Thank you. James?
Right, so I think a lot of people said a lot of things on the matter, and from the reactions on council, I think that I should motion to move on to orders of the day. Right?
There's 4 minutes left. Today, it was already 20 minutes.
Orders of the day.
So we'll do the last
Orders of
4
the day.
minutes. Technically, orders of the day are finishing the 4 minutes, but yeah.
I'm
okay with those. Like, how many speakers are left?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Just
9,
let
10,
the
11.
let the next two go.
Yeah.
That's 4
You're
minutes.
next. Do you mind if I just let the first time speakers, there's like 4.
Mhm.
Is that okay, everyone? Do you mind first time speakers, and then we'll move on. It's gonna take like 5 minutes. Jared?
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a sentiment that's kind of been repeated. I mean, I don't think there's anyone on this council who wants more fine arts representation than me, the one person from fine arts. At the same time, there was more than one seat for the fine arts, and just nobody runs. So I don't see how an arts and science student would look at the fine arts every year, have 1 or 2 available seats, and think, hey, you know, that seat's available, how come I don't take it because my faculty's bigger? At the end of the day, the fine arts do not represent 20% of the students in Concordia. We don't even represent half that. I would find it equally unfair for a very, very small faculty to all of a sudden wield more power than they frankly should. I mean, it looks to me, frankly, almost like an electoral college. How some smaller states have more power based off of just, well, you just automatically get this amount of power. Like, the reason the fine arts is so small is because there was like no one person has run for the past 2 or 3 years, you know, and I don't see how giving us 20% of the seats would add more people to the council.
Thank you. Isaiah?
Just to address certain, like, at the end of the day, I'm amendable to whatever students decide, but just to speak as a person of color and a JMSB student, it's like, I can see there's a gap for whatever reason, the union, between the union and certain faculties, whether it be engineering, where it's be business. And I think the point is, like, the council needs, it's like, the representation is important, but also kind of like, it's hard for, like, the council's supposed to represent all students, but we make decisions on specific faculties all the time. If you're in JMSB, you're less likely to come to the CSU because you come in here and you feel like people are not hearing you, they're not feeling you, they're not understanding your issues. And so it's like, sometimes people like, sometimes depending on the issue, people will just be like, they write that off as an option and they go elsewhere to go seek other resorts because they don't feel welcome. So this is one technique, but another technique would just be people to be like, take students' needs and concerns when they come and like have an open mind and really just try their best to think about other people who are not necessarily in your faculty. So it's like, we don't need necessarily a referendum question to restructure the whole council, but if people who do run think about like, well, what do engineers, I pray for engineers every time I see them because I know that your midterms and your finals are not fair. It's like taking yourself out of your faculty, even though you represent arts and science. Think about like, well, what does this JMSB person in front of me want and need? Thinking about what does this political science major want and need? Like representing your faculty, but also not forgetting about the other faculties that are here at school.
Thank you. So we just have Melis, and then that's it.
I don't think I spoke already.
Oh, you did? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, my mistake.
Yeah.
I have Patrick as well as a first-time speaker, but I don't think he's
He's not here.
Okay. Okay, so in that case, we've exhausted the speakers list, and we're just at time right now. So if there's nothing further, thank you very much for presenting, Chris and Danielle. And
Sorry, point of privilege. I'm just gonna, yeah, what, sorry. I have to leave early. I've already like told the chair. I just wanted to let you guys know. So, this is my exit. You didn't have to flip that.
Oh.
Just for the general room. Sorry.
Also, yeah. Just to be clear, you don't have to announce it, it's just an awkward room, so like you have to scoot by a bunch of people. But if anyone has to leave during a meeting, like feel free to walk out the door, there's nothing forcing you to be here. Yeah, we do, it's 7.
One last thing, Caitlin, would you be able to distribute that PowerPoint to
Yeah,
all
done.
counselors? Okay.
Done. Did anything change since you said?
No.
Okay, then all done. Yeah?
Instead of being excused next meeting, should I just ask to be excused now by council?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, can someone move to excuse me? Oh, and Hannah, sorry, who is very ill.
Actually,
Victoria.
wait, point of information.
Yes.
It's 9:30. In an hour and a half, it's going to be 11.
Yeah.
Technically, you don't need an excusal if you miss less than an hour and a half, which is exactly. It's 90 minutes. It's 90.
Oh,
It's 90.
sorry.
So technically you don't even need one.
Well, I need an excusal, so if someone wants to give me
We
an
already
excusal.
gave it, we
already
Okay,
did.
oh, that's so sweet. God bless.
Okay, so if the meeting goes over time, I'll let you know and we can deal with it next week, but do not feel bad.
But if it goes
Please take
over
care of
time,
yourselves.
you-
It will not go over time.
Yeah.
Do not worry. And then we can deal with it next meeting, which is
If it gets
also
to
okay.
11, we can just end the meeting.
Yes.
We just don't need to extend, we can go home.
Exactly. All right, so we'll just continue with the meeting. Finance presentation. Okay, so if you can turn your attention to Desiree. Do you have a-
Yeah, I have a question, but I have to sign into my Google.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be a few minutes. And now we're at $96,000. These are the projects they funded last year, to give you an idea. It was really small projects, right? The biggest one they funded was the CSU governance project, and that was more of an internal thing.
What was it?
CSU governance project?
There's the governance review that didn't get finished.
Did we pay for it?
Yeah, this is legal fees mostly.
Yeah. So that's how much they spent last year, right? Because as we had talked before, it's only recently that this fund has been kind of, not discovered, but the CSU has understood what it actually can do and how much people have been. Yeah, you have a question, James?
Yes. Just, I don't remember voting to use the money for the governance review. Is that, how is, like, can you refresh everybody here as to the rules about how funding for the endowment fund gets approved?
Yeah, endowment fund has to go through council. Now, the date is specific that it happened. I don't have it right now. I can look and see when the transaction was made, how it was spent and everything. Maybe, to be honest, it was just a meeting you weren't there, because I can't tell you.
I can talk on that.
Yeah.
So, last year, I don't believe they brought it to council, because I know for clubs, every time, because clubs went into deficit, as you guys all know. So I recall John always saying, when we don't have the money for it, and he would just put it through the endowment fund. And it didn't go to council. So I don't, in our standing regs and in our bylaws, there is no policy for the endowment fund, because they just discovered it, I think, the year before last year. So last year, they didn't bring it to council, essentially. It is?
Yeah.
I know for the clubs, there was like a budget of $5,000 that was allocated for renovation. I don't know if I don't know if they would have gone to council every time there was a thing. These projects, my knowledge is limited to I have the numbers.
I have a point of information. Oh, sorry. Do you want to take your own questions, by the way, or do you want me to deal with them?
I can do the questions
Okay.
right now, yeah, until it gets crazy. Yeah.
So technically, can like clubs, let's say, use the endowment fund without telling council?
No. It's 208, actually, I just pulled it up. The approval of council is necessary for any disbursement from the fund. So that's how the standing regulation is worded.
And what happened
So last
Sorry,
year,
I'm
my
confused.
understanding is, from one of the people, it's not here, but the papers I've seen is they were granted $5,000 from the student endowment fund with Andrew for clubs renovation. They didn't use it all, they used, $1,300. Huh?
Who approved it?
I don't have the paperwork as to how it was approved, I just know Andrew said yes for up to $5K. So that's.
And he can say that as well.
Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah, the process is, well, I'll meet with him this week to figure out how we go forward with these two. But right now, it's everyone votes yes or no, or if people vote yes, then I'm in contact with Andrew, and then usually he says yes.
Okay.
That's what I've understood. It's usually a pretty easy thing. And he's made it clear that he doesn't want to stop us from getting this money, because it is ours. Yeah. I know Esther will see that.
I was just wondering, before there's 9,202 that was put in online voting.
Yeah.
Can I speak to that? So, I didn't realize that it was put through the endowment, but basically that was the amount that is the amount for Simply Voting. That's the company we use. It's well less than what we've paid in the past for security guards and whatnot. So we're actually saving quite a bit. 9,202 is actually quite a steal. if you're thinking about all this, but this is the price we pay for 38,000 voters on our voting list. Like, we pay a per vote fee. That's how much it cost last year. I remember specifically that proposal.
And if I'm not mistaken, it was like the first time buy also. It's going to be less expensive this year. And overall, the elections budget went really down because there's not going to be as many polling clerks as the year before because we're just going to put a few people there. Less need for security. So although it was a big expense last year, overall, there's way less money put into elections. So that's student endowment. For Silk, I just wanted to show you what passed through last year. A lot. Silk, just to remind everyone, essentially all these projects were funded from the interests accrued from Silk. And that's, Silk is about $9 million, so interest of that is upwards of $500,000. So these are all the projects that were approved. Not everyone has come for their money yet, like FASA renovations, we talked to them recently because they're only starting right now. But these were all passed through council and through the Silk committee last year. And this is also just to give you an idea of how it worked last year, so that this year we've only approved 2 projects right now. And it's to give you context, essentially. And to say, okay, now $500 for random things. That little extra, we overinflated the budget essentially. So if you still have money at the end of the year, keep it there for committees essentially. Time limit for reimbursement, this is just an idea that's been floating around with the exec, starting to install either for clubs or for granting bodies, put a time limit as to how when you can come back and get the money, and encourage diverse funding. So like the presentation we saw earlier, how they showed they were getting money from everywhere else, that's really good, and we want to encourage that. Yes.
Time limit for reimbursement?
Yeah.
So if you don't come within the next 2 weeks, you don't get your
Or
money?
something, yeah. It's not a rule yet. This is just things that we've talked about, and we realized it would make a lot of sense because an example is throughout the summer we had a lot of check requisitions for either CAF or external clubs. Kind of understood that they were there pretty much on time, but we were in an awkward situation where we were still giving out money from projects that were approved last year, and it becomes more complicated to run after the minutes and stuff like that because like Isaiah didn't say yes, but then he's signing his check requisition that's saying yes, I approve this. But it's only because last year they were approving it. So putting a time limit will just ensure that it doesn't happen.
Chris had a question as well.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, not even a question, just a general statement. You can speak to it if you want. But just something that I've noticed on my 2 years in the CSU that I think is a major problem, and Patrick shared this sentiment, so credit to him for making it a big deal to me. It's the fact that it's not very effective or organized or professional to get a group of people to present in front of a giant room of 30 people. It's very intimidating. Well-intentioned questions could come across as maybe condescending or, I mean, like when you're on the spot in front of 30 people, even the kindest question could feel like an attack. So we're putting people in a very stressful environment and they're not presenting at their best. And it also doesn't allow us a lot of flexibility. So let's say they come in and they're like, here's our presentation. We could go, okay, leave the room. And if you're a small committee, if you're 5 people, you can talk a bit, kind of try and work something out. And then you can invite them back in and try and negotiate. The flexibility that you get in a committee, which is more effective, more efficient, more organizational, more professional, you don't get here in council. So in my opinion, I don't think anybody should be asking money from council in council. So yeah, just wanted to share that.
I remember you had talked also during the summer, we don't have a place right now, but making even possibly a budget line just for like projects that come out of nowhere. So it's just things, so we're not always put in a situation where 50 people are asking for money and then you're like, yeah, we don't have money, sorry. So just, these are things to think about throughout the year. We don't have concrete solutions yet, but like we're figuring it out. And that's it. It's just information.
Thank you. So there were a lot of questions asked during your presentation. Is there anything that anyone still wants to know? Okay, so if not, we can move on in the agenda. Currently we're at 6, which is appointments. I don't know if anyone wants to deal with the closed session points first or go straight into appointments and then deal with those last.
Let's do the closed session.
Oh, wait, let's do appointments. It's 2 seconds, no?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can, okay, we'll deal with appointments. Okay, so in that case, we're on 6A, which is the Sexual Misconduct and Sexual Violence Standing Committee, and Chris, you had brought this one, I believe?
Yeah, I'll speak to it. So, hey everybody, just wanted to speak on quickly what's going on in the Appointments Committee and then why we're bringing this. So currently Appointments Committee, as you probably know, is very backed up. We've got a lot of appointments to make. And we thought, why not bring this to council first, see if anyone's interested, and if they're not, then we could go to finding members at large. There will be lots of members at large everywhere. We've appointed, if you look at the Appointments Committee minutes, like tons. But, and we also thought it'd be cool to have someone on the inside of the council or the executive on this committee. So this is a position that's open to all executives, all councillors, or do we say councillors? Do you remember? Okay. Yeah, you look there.
Or no, I read something. Oh, I think
It might have been councillors.
I mean, at this point, I think we could be friendly to, yeah.
Okay.
Is the purpose to appoint today?
Yeah, so the purpose
Okay.
is to go, hey, here, does anyone want to be on the Sexual Misconduct and Sexual Violence Standing Committee as the alternate, which means you get to speak, you get to attend, but you don't get to vote. The voting rights will be held by the 2 actual members who are members at large. So is anybody in this room interested in being on the Sexual Misconduct and Sexual Violence Standing Committee?
Elizabeth?
Oh, I'm interested.
Okay, do we have a second?
Oh, I'm interested too.
Okay, Naomi, how many spots are there, sir?
There's currently 1 spot.
Okay.
If there's a lot of interest, we might have a second available because now hasn't been answered.
Okay.
I just had a question before we
Yeah.
proceed.
I'll just go with Salman because your mic was up.
Yeah, so like, if there's like a couple of councillors interested, so there will be like voting?
Sorry?
If a couple of councillors are interested, so there will be voting between them, right?
Yeah, so if there's more than one counselor interested in the position, we'll have to go to secret ballot. Naomi?
Okay, 2 questions. Sorry, Chris, you said because in Appointments Committee, there's 1 person who had applied for the subcommittee of sexual misconduct, and we appointed them to both, but I just wanted to confirm that they are appointed to both and not just like the educational committee, so there's...
I haven't been getting, like they went MIA as recently as I can tell. I haven't been getting responses.
Okay.
I'd like to give it a few more days.
Yeah. And, yeah, that works. And my second question is, do we have to do secret ballot?
Council took a resolution, I think, last year that if there's more than one person running for, like if there's more than the amount of seats that are running for a seat, then it goes to secret ballot. So it's like if 2 people are running for 1 seat or 4 people are running for 3 seats, etc. Yeah, we did.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we change it?
Yeah. How, would that have to be a policy change or like some?
No, it's just a resolution. If council doesn't want to do that anymore, like, you could move to not do that.
Could I move to not do that?
Like for like, you want to.
For like ever.
Okay, so you want to make a motion that if there's, like to cancel the resolution that all, all appointments with more nominees than the amount of seats go to secret ballot.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, Esther, is there any opposition to this motion? Okay, so it'll move to a vote. Do we want to talk about this, or can we just vote? Like, is anyone's? Okay, is anyone? Jared, do you want?
Just say something quickly, if that's all right with everybody.
Yeah.
Would this be? It's more of a question. Like, would this be like from here on out, whenever like 2 councillors want something, it wouldn't automatically go to a secret ballot?
Yeah, but a secret ballot could be called.
But it could be called, yes. That's the only thing. What then? If I call a secret ballot, like if I say, oh, I want a secret ballot. Would it automatically go to secret ballot, or would that then become a debate as to whether or not we go into secret ballot?
Well, there's no debate on voting method anyways, but we seem to have come to the conclusion that if one person wants it, we get it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But it's not going to be automatic.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
If someone wants it, we aren't going to go into like a 20-minute debate.
No.
It should be secret ballot.
There's no
Okay.
there's no debate on how
Okay.
to vote. So, yeah, it's just, it is what it is. Okay, so all those in favor of rescinding the resolution that made us go to secret ballot automatically when there were more nominees for the amount of seats, please raise your placards.
Sorry, I don't understand that.
Okay, so let me explain this. Yeah, so right now, as it stands, when we do appointments, if there are more nominees than the amount of seats available, it goes to secret ballot. So like if there's one person applying for one seat, we just vote and that's cool. But if there's two people applying for one seat, then we have to do secret ballot. So that was put in place last year at the beginning of the year. So the motion on the table right now is to rescind that resolution, so it wouldn't automatically go to secret ballot. It would be whatever council wants at any given time. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so all those in favor of rescinding, please raise your placards. 1, 2. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, and any abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it remains as is. So if there are 2 applicants for the position on the committee, then we would go to secret ballot. But so far, there's just Elizabeth, I think. Or Esther, did you also?
Can I know more about the position?
Yeah. Can you offer more information on it?
Yeah, so what exactly do you want to know?
Could I be sitting on it just as a student at large?
Sorry?
Could I be sitting on it, not as a counselor?
Well, you are, regardless of whether or not, like, we're just appointing you as a person, really. You're not representing the council, you're just representing undergraduate students, that's it. Like, whether you're appointed here or as a member at large, it's all the same.
And as well, this is the alternate position, correct?
Yeah, alternate, which has no vote. It's
Yeah.
just speaking rights.
So basically this committee, it's not me. You work on, from my understanding, it's the school's working on like the sexual harassment policies. Oh. Okay, I thought you wanted clarification on what the role was.
No, I was this specific seat.
Oh,
Okay. So far we have Elizabeth as nominee. Jared?
I just want to say I'm not nominating nobody. I have a question. There's like just a lot of councillors that like aren't here. So should we like just whatever, you know, you weren't here, so it sucks to be you?
Sure.
Yeah, the reason why we need a representative now is because it's urgent, and honestly, it was in the agenda. I think if anybody really wanted it, they could have stayed.
Thank you. Okay. So do you want to tell us a couple sentences about why you want to be on the committee?
Sure. So I'm really interested in being in this committee because since I'm already on policy committee, I'm just interested more in building on those policies and really just getting to the crux of identifying the core issues in terms of our sexual violence policy and identifying the different spots where the admin or the people on the committee may have blind spots or where we're lacking in terms of like how we can better protect our students and our student interests. So I would be interested on sitting on the committee, even though I wouldn't have a vote, just to offer those insights and to better represent our student population.
Thank you. Okay, so there's no further nominees or discussion. I just need a motion from the floor to appoint Elizabeth. Yes, Salman? Okay, seconded by Jared. Is there any opposition to appointing Elizabeth? All right. So you have been appointed. Yes, Chris?
Yeah, and since I saw there's other interest in the room, if currently I'm not getting answers from the second person who's supposed to be a voting member on the committee, so I'd like to know, does anyone want to express their interest at being that second person if we don't get a response? Because like I said before, this is urgent. And Elizabeth, if you're interested in being a voting member, you could also raise that now.
Oh, so like, can I do it again?
Yeah, and is anybody else interested in being a voting member?
Okay.
All right. So what we could do is we could agree.
First one first and then second one.
So yeah, we could agree like, well, we'll do a motion, but I'll explain it first. If it turns out that the person is MIA, they're not responding, we'll put it up to a vote next council, who's the voting member, who's not. So, motion to do that? Can we just informally let that slide?
Oh, like motion to put that on next meeting's agenda?
Yeah, sure. Or
Okay.
to recognize candidates, maybe.
Point of
Okay.
information,
Patrick?
but when we're dealing with the university, they kind of want to know who's the voting and who's not the voting. So
I agree.
I'm just asking you this question: how can you clarify that with the university if they don't, like, because they do like to have these lines of.
As well, my main question is, does anything have to be done before the 23rd?
I mean, yes is the answer.
Okay. So what we can do is make a motion pending the, I guess, resignation of the other?
Yeah, so, pending the resignation of the second voting member of the SMSD committee,
Be it resolved that Elizabeth.
Be it resolved that we appoint both Esther and Elizabeth, and be it resolved that we determine the voting member through a vote at the October 23rd council. And until then, we can informally decide who's who, and then we'll resolve it formally at council.
Technically, we're not really taking any decision right now. Like, even that motion doesn't take a decision to appoint anyone. Yeah.
All right, so could we all informally agree to that?
Yes. Everyone's okay?
Perfect.
Okay. So,
Agreeing to what?
yeah, absolutely, Esther.
To give the voting right to Elizabeth.
Okay.
It's all
I mean, it would just kind of be informal because technically we can't appoint because the person is still there in the seat. So like they would have to be resigned or like deemed resigned before we can do any kind of formal appointment. But we have an informal, pretty much consensus, so that is good, and it will come back next week. In 2 weeks, sorry. Okay, so if there's nothing further on 6A, we're at 6B, which is CCSL, and it says you, but I think usually Eduardo talks about
Yeah, I think Eduardo,
CCSL.
I'll explain quickly what we did, and then you can speak to it. So Eduardo's told me that it's pressing that we have people on CCSL, so to expedite the process, we wanted to see if anyone on council is interested. We decided as appointments committee to open up 2 new spots on CCSL. So Eduardo.
Yeah, so CCSL is basically council at the Concordia University body level. Every time, because the council is exactly split 50-50 between students and faculty, so every time a student group that has a right to a seat isn't able to fill that seat internally, that right then falls onto CSU to fill that seat. So recently, continuing education told CCSL that they would not be able to fill their seat, so that right now becomes ours to fill up their seat for them. At the moment, we require 7 people on CCSL from everyone not filling up their seats, and we would probably have to start getting those people in soon. So as appointments committee is in charge of appointing them, appointments committee decided to expedite this process, opening up to more counselors. Fun fact, if you sit on this committee, you are eligible for $300 at the end of the year. That's right, that's all I want to see, Jared.
Yeah, I was just interested in sitting on.
Okay, so there's 2 spots open. Do we have a second for Esther's nomination? Yes. Jared? Yes, Eduardo?
Just one thing, the meeting for CCSL is always Friday mornings. So if you have class Friday, normally it's 10 to 1 every Friday once a month, with the exception of, I believe, February, which has twice. So if you have classes on Friday morning, you are not going to be, you're going to have to miss your class.
Okay, thank you. Isaiah? Was that a placard or you were just?
I want to know if executives are included, but we're not.
All right. Jared?
I rescind.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Oh.
I have classes Friday morning, sorry.
Oh.
Okay, is there, yes, Lindsay?
Oh, can I
Nominate to yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, good second, Elizabeth. Okay, so we have 2 counselors nominated for 2 seats. Yeah, Esther?
Can I nominate someone?
Yes. Do you consent? Okay, order please.
I heard you want to be nominated. I heard you.
Do you want to be on this committee?
From CCSL?
Yes.
Friday mornings, like, great job.
You go, okay.
Thank you so much, but.
Naomi?
Nominate Lindsay.
Oh, sure, nominate.
Sorry,
Jared?
I'm sorry. I'm leaving.
Omnibus the 2 candidates.
Okay, do we have a second for Omnibus? Emma? Is there any opposition to appointing Esther and Lindsay to the CCSL? All right, then congratulations, you are appointed to CCSL. Is there anything further on B?
No, we're good for B.
Okay, so that leaves us with C through E, sustainability coordinator. Chris?
Yeah, I already spoke to that at the beginning, but candidate can be available next Wednesday,
2 Wednesdays?
Yeah.
Okay, so that will go back on the agenda for the 23rd. Strategic Planning Committee, so it was actually Arad who had messaged me to put this on the agenda. It was the ad hoc committee made, last council.
Wait, last
Yes.
council?
No, the SCM, sorry, the special council.
Yeah, and then it got tabled, the appointments to today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would be on it?
Yeah.
Does anyone want to speak to it?
Yeah, well,
Chris?
I mean, personally, like, you wrote me a message to read out, but I just feel like in an empty-ish room, it kind of loses its power.
We can
So,
table it.
I think we should table it.
I would just like to advocate that, like, every time we keep tabling things that like should just get started informally don't get started. So I would advocate that you appoint like 1 or 2. That's just a mere suggestion. If you don't want to, that's fine. But just keep in mind that when you keep tabling things like this, I would just table, like I would just appoint 1 or 2 people.
Actually, clarification, he sent me a motivation that I didn't read yet, I just saw it. So I could read his motivation if we want to get started on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Aaron says, I was the sole counselor on the previous strategic planning committee. Unfortunately, it was created at the end of the year, so we only had time to complete 1 meeting. So I'd really love it if council could grant me the opportunity to complete my work with Robert Henry, the general manager. We've already performed a SWOT analysis to assess the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities of growth, and threats against growth for each individual CSU branch. The second reason why this is important to me is that strategic planning is my bread and butter. Having competed in 2 international strategy case competitions and currently pursuing a career in the strategy division of my firm, the CSU lacks some baseline level of uniformity from one mandate to the next because of the amount of turnover we get year after year. This is something Robert and I both want to dig deeper into to fix. Finally, it should be mentioned that this year I am only on 1 committee, the finance committee, so this is where I want to put my efforts into for a second committee.
Thank you. Okay, that was easy. So that's 1 nominee. Jared?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, so at least we have 1 nominee for the committee. Naomi?
Can I motion to appoint Arad on this committee?
Yeah, if you want to go 1 at a time. Do we have a second to appoint Arad to the committee?
Wouldn't
Elias?
Arad be the second?
In this case, he's not here, so
Okay.
I can't really.
Either way, I'd second him, I just wasn't sure.
Okay, is there any opposition to appointing Arad to the committee? Okay, so then that carries unanimously. Elias?
I would also like to partake in that committee.
Okay, do we have a second? Elizabeth? Okay, Isaiah?
Can exec sit on this committee?
What was the motion? What was the motion from the previous meeting? Maybe that will clarify.
I don't currently have it on.
I'll open the minutes.
I thought Chris was sitting on it.
I think it's
I am sitting on it. Yeah, he said the general coordinator, general manager. I forget the number of counselors.
I'll check it.
It could have been 3, it could have been 2, I forgot.
Yeah, it's true.
But it's at least 2. I know that.
It can only be the general manager, the general coordinator, and 3 counselors.
Oh.
Okay, so currently we have 1 counselor appointed and then another nominated. Amma?
I move to appoint Salman in the strategic planning committee.
Do you consent?
Yes.
Okay, so that counts as the second. It was stated as a motion, so is there any opposition to appointing Salman? Okay, perfect. So that is unanimous. And we also have Elias who nominated themselves. Yes, Jared?
Can we just get to that vote?
Okay, so motion to appoint. Do we have a second? Esther, is there any opposition to appointing Elias to the Strategic Planning Committee? No? All right. So in that case, it is unanimous. So we have on the Strategic Planning Committee currently Arad, Salman, and Elias as the counselors. Yes, Isaiah?
Can other execs outside of the general coordinators, are they welcome to the, is it kind of like one of the committees that we can come and not have a vote on, or is it just more so of these 5 people?
Do you want to answer that?
Yes, come in. I talked extensively with Arad about this. The whole point is to talk to everyone, get everyone's idea, and to coordinate long-term plans with everyone. Where do we want to see the CSU move in the future? And so everyone's welcome to pitch in, and we will consult with execs and counselors for different ideas, projects.
All right, thank you. So if there is nothing further on the Strategic Planning Committee, we can move on to the closed session points. Is everyone okay with doing closed session now? Okay.
Would that be the end of today, or?
So what we have on the agenda right now, we have Senate update in closed, bathroom renovations in closed, and then the reading of the Silk Fund lawyer CVs, and then in open, we have post-secret mindfulness project, budgetary impact, and clubs and space committee.
Can we just,
Sure?
can we just, while we're still in open, just deal with
Okay.
it?
Yeah, because like, I
Okay.
was just gonna say, like, I was about to suspend Robert's rules, but never mind.
Okay,
I'll just
so
finish
we'll
it up.
just
Yeah.
move on with the opens. Yes, Jared?
Question, we have until 11 to get all that done?
Yeah, we do.
Let's do it.
Let's
Okay, all right.
Okay,
System.
Okay, so we'll get this show on the road. 7A, which is post secret, and Marin, this one is yours. Jared?
You get to the next thing then?
Okay, mindfulness project is also Marin, or is it yours?
No, no.
Those are.
Okay.
There it is,
Maybe,
Marin.
Maren, do you also have a mindfulness project point? No. Okay, so yeah, it was me.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
you can-
yeah, so your post secret point.
I think I posted on it on the group. I sent my proposal. I don't know if everyone got to read on it, but I'm looking for money coming down the fund, about $3,000. Because I felt like when I presented last week, the main concern was really the amount of money. So I decided to apply to other funding bodies and come up with a smaller number. And I'm hoping you guys motion 3K in the amount of fund for a full secret.
So we'd either need to discuss or have someone make a motion. Esther?
I motion we give 3,000.
So to allot $3,000 to the post secret?
Yeah.
Point of
Okay.
information.
First it just needs a second.
Second.
Selma? Yes, point of information.
Like, I checked the budget, but I see $2,000 on it. Is it like 2 or 3?
Yeah.
2,000?
No, 3,000.
3,000?
Like the more the merrier. If you guys want to give 5, it's like if you give less, I'm gonna just apply to more grants. If you give more, I'm gonna apply to less.
Okay, so the current motion on the table is to allot 3,000. Esther, it's your motivation since it was your motion.
Okay, I'll tell you why it says 2,500. So as I was applying to funding bodies, it was me applying to all the different funding bodies, and Cooper discretionary, I discovered it at the end, and I was like, okay, so because when you submit the budget proposals to all the different funding bodies, it has to look like that. So I was like, okay, I have to add Cooper on when, so I just wanted to be transparent on all the funding bodies, but none of them are guaranteed. So I took off the 5K from the endowment because I was like, I don't know if that's guaranteed also. And I put that to say that I'm gonna apply to Cooper's budget. So if you wanna give 250, if you wanna give 3, none of these are really confirmed, really.
Thank you. Naomi?
Sorry, I'm confused. Maybe you answered this and I just missed it, but like, under here I see sponsors, CSU, 2,000 confirmed, and then below CSU, DOS endowment, 25.
So the 2K is what we can afford from the budget lines we can. So Isaiah has agreed to sponsor a portion of the budget if I'm able to raise the rest from various funding providers.
Speaker series, we'd have to look into.
Yeah, I mean, if you can answer it.
So Marin's project Post Secret is considered a speaker series, which is one of the internal lines of grants. So depending on like if she's able to get the project or not going, I'd be able to allocate money from that budget line to this project.
From the external.
Well, it's the speaker series line.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
I just want to say thank you, Marin, for putting in a lot of work into this passion project. I definitely think that this is a great initiative, and I'm also glad that it's separate from the mental health committee, so that gives us more leeway in terms of the different things we can focus on. I definitely support giving funding in general. I'm amenable to the amount. I don't really have a set amount that I think is ideal, but the ballpark that you put here seems reasonable, so
yeah, I'm pretty amenable to it.
One of the counselors told me to put like stories of like, I guess, how this works. So one of these secrets, I don't know if you can see it, but Post Secret Live, which is what I'm hoping to bring, reminded me why I want to be a mental health counselor. So it can like also like that's among all the other things I added in the file in the group. It also can be really good for inspiring students to want to work in the field and be more compassionate and everything. It's really listening. And I encourage you guys to check out the website because there's really good secrets this week.
Thank you. Annalise?
Yeah, I'm also amenable to the amount. The only problem I have is ticket sales. Where are we going to get the sales?
So I put them there, but they're not confirmed. Like, what's your question?
No, like why do ticket sales at all? I'm totally cool with like charging people that don't go to school here as much as we want. Charge them $1,000. I don't care. But like, why are we charging $10 for our students to go to it? Especially since it's mostly sponsored. So
if
like,
you want to make it conditionary on free tickets,
yeah,
you can like make that amendment. I just put that because I thought the committee, councilors would be more like inclined to give money if I'm like charging and I'm supplementing it that way somehow. But we can do $0. I'm chill with that.
yeah, charge professors. I don't care. But like, yeah.
Okay, so currently Chris?
Yeah, so I just want to speak to this. Wait, quickly, what amount are you asking for right now?
3,000 on the table.
Yeah, 3,000, okay, that's
Or
what I
as much as you
thought.
want, really.
Just wanted to make sure, because you said that, I wanted to make
Well,
sure.
the budget says 2,500.
On the table though is 3,000. That was the motion made.
Okay, so anyway, I just want to speak to this. When people are asking for large amounts of money, I get very concerned, but $3,000, I mean, that's a pretty small budget. So personally, I think this is not too much to ask for planning an event that Marin is so passionate about. I know that Marin is very restricted in her capacity as an internal coordinator. She can't really do things like this that she really cares about. I mean, she also cares a lot about clubs, but it restricts her. So to be able to let Marin do this passion project, I think it'd be a really nice gesture on part of the council, especially because the council's being included. Is the council being included?
Everything.
There we go.
Thank you. Naomi?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of echo everyone's voice in saying that, but and I also wanted to thank you for giving us more information because I was a bit like I didn't know how I felt about it last council meeting because it was a high amount, but by lowering the amount and also giving us examples of other universities who've used it was very helpful because I didn't see how this could be great for like Concordia, but seeing other universities and the impact it had was really great. The only thing is, as Melise said, I would just make it for our students free. So can I amend that right now or no?
I mean, does it need to be amended? Like, it can be something in, like, it's an internal kind of detail that. Okay, so at this point, the motion on the table is 3,000. There's no more speakers list. Yes, Jared?
I called the question.
Okay. Okay, so all those in favor of, oh, yes?
Was I not on the list?
I didn't see you if you raised your placard. Do you want one more speaker? Go ahead.
Well, it's just a quick question. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry if this was addressed last council meeting, but was this supposed to be just at the downtown campus or also Loyola, or how was it going to be spread out? Is the speaker going to come to both campus? Is it just going to be downtown? Just what's the logistics?
So the venue I was looking at is the alumni theater because it's the cheapest one. The project Post Secret itself with the postcards and the community building, that hopefully is going to be spread all around campus and hopefully even grow into the larger community, community. I'm working with FASA on that part and a couple of fraternities and sororities because they up the talent. And for this, though, for the main event, for the live event, it's going to be hopefully in the alumni theater, also because it's a lot cheaper to rent than the Oscar theater.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so if there's nothing.
Oscar Peterson's like $2,000. Oscar Peterson's like $2,000. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay, so if there's no further questions or discussion, we can move to a vote. So all those in favor of allotting $3,000 to the Post Secret project, please raise your placards. 6, 7, 8, 9. All those opposed? 0. And any abstentions? All right, so that carries unanimously. Okay, so if there's nothing further on 7A, we can move on to B, which is mindfulness project. And Desiree, this one's yours.
Actually, can I do the vegetarian pack?
Yeah, do you want to do it first?
Yeah, because
Okay.
it's less. And less. Yeah.
Okay, so we can do 7. Is everyone amenable to doing 7C first? Oh, sorry. Okay, so I'll do budgetary impact. So if you could just read the motion first, please.
Okay. Should I put it?
If possible,
Yeah,
I think Shivani has it, or probably, it was in the docs. Yeah, so you can start talking and
Okay.
she can put it on.
Put it back.
Yeah, it should go.
Okay, so actually this is Arad's motion. He's just not here right now to talk about it, but I think it's a good initiative. So, whereas motions are discussed, voted on, and implemented often with no consideration for the budget, whereas this matter causes budget overruns, whereas the CSU has been in a financially precarious environment, surviving with debt money from Silk, whereas the CSU's role is to ensure smooth continuation in order to best provide its services to the student base, be it resolved that all motions require a budgetary impact estimation, be it an increase, a decrease, or nil, specifying the exact budget lines affected. Be it further resolved that if this budgetary impact causes a deficit position within the budget line, an additional proposal be included for how this may be funded. Be it further resolved that in such instances, the finance coordinator be consulted to determine the best funding avenue. This consultation is strongly encouraged but not mandatory. Be it further resolved that the budgetary impact of this motion is nil.
Thank you. The second, Elias.
Just one thing, I forgot, but specifying the exact, it's not there. Specifying the exact budget lines affected, I'd want to not have it in the motion. I don't know how that would work.
Sorry, Rose?
I'd like to amend the motion I'm presenting.
Okay, to do what? Sorry, I didn't.
Oh, no, it's good. First, be it resolved, I don't want to specifying the exact budget lines affected.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
let me
first
just
thing.
find this. It's in the docs from the.
No, it's actually on the Facebook page.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
Oh, awesome.
yeah, it's on. Yeah.
Okay, so just without specifying the.
Exact budget lines.
Exact budget lines, okay.
But I can still.
Yeah, do you want to motivate?
Yeah, essentially this motion, all it does essentially is adding a necessary line to every motion saying the budgetary impact of this motion is, and then you see, is it costing us money, is it bringing us money, or is it no? So it's just a habit to have so that every time something is presented, it can be very confusing where there's like a lot of funding requests. This is just an overall, like just reminder that this is not costing us anything. Most people, when they ask for money, they'll have the proposal with the motion, but it's just an additional line saying, an overall, this is how much we're asking, or this is how much we'll be bringing to you, or this has no impact. So yeah.
Okay, and is everyone amenable to the amendment that to just take out the part about which budget line in the first whereas you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So is everyone amenable to that? Okay. Elias?
Well, no, actually.
Oh.
I would. Sorry.
It's okay.
I would just like, instead of specifying the exact, maybe just suggesting a budget line. I would just like the initiative to come out of the people who write the motion.
Okay, do we have
Just,
a second?
it's not obligatory, but suggestion.
Okay, so to change to suggest other. So it would say.
Should I change it?
I can go there.
Suggesting
Yeah, sure.
the budget line affected, instead of specifying the exact budget lines affected.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just looking. Okay, we'll have it on the screen in a second. All right. So is everyone amenable to that? Is there any opposition? Right? Is that opposition?
Point of information.
Mm-hmm.
When you guys are saying budget lines, like you mean lines of operation, like the total line, because like as the person who oversees like let's take the BIPOC budget. Within the BIPOC budget, I have a line within that budget. So, how specific are we getting? Are you saying?
No, the overall budget operational line.
Okay.
Yeah, not to.
The more details, the merrier. But
yeah.
But the more details, the merrier, of course. But it's a suggestion. It's just for the financial committee so that they know exactly what you're suggesting. So if you say, well, I'd like to take money from the BIPOC committee funds, what part of it? would be neat to specify, just so we can look into it faster.
All right, thank you. Okay, so that is that. Is there any opposition to the amendment that it says suggesting instead of specifying? Okay, so it will be changed. Is there any more discussion on the motion? Okay, so if not, it is on the screen. Okay, does anyone need a minute to read it? All good? Yeah.
Wait.
Oh, no, I was saying, does anyone need a minute to read it? Okay, perfect. Okay, if not, then all those in favor of the motion as amended, please raise your placards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those opposed? 0. And any abstentions? 2. Perfect. So that carries. And if there's nothing further on budgetary impact, then we're on 7B, which is mindfulness project. Desiree?
Okay, I will read it.
Okay.
This one is, whereas Finance Committee was mandated to find a guaranteed $5,000 to fund the mindfulness project from CSU operating. I think I'll put it because it's going to be a lot of numbers.
Yeah, is it, was it not sent out?
No, it was on Facebook.
It's on Facebook.
Oh, okay, it is,
Yes,
okay.
Same situation.
Which file?
It's a very cool motion.
Oh, okay.
That was nice.
They're different, okay.
If anything, this is a less cool motion.
It's kind of cool, alright.
Okay, so you can start reading it.
Okay. Whereas Finance Committee was mandated to find a guaranteed $5,000 to fund the mindfulness project from the CSU operating budget. Whereas Finance Committee was mandated to find up to an additional $17,000 from the CSU operating budget for this purpose. Whereas Finance Committee's analysis has shown that 1. A surprise expense coming late in the budget is difficult to process and undue stress on resources. 2. A large expense limits the ability to fund several grassroots projects. 3. There is limited funding available within the CSU operating budget. Be it further resolved that the mindfulness project budget be amended as follows. Proposed budget, so this is what we're proposing. Coordinator honorarium, $3,000 brute, so it's going to be taxed. Instructor honorarium, $6,353 brute. Marketing coordinator honorarium, $750. Materials, $500. $500 net. Ads and marketing, $500 brute, $500 net. Total offered $11,103 brute. So with the amounts taxed, it comes down to $9,588 net. Be it resolved that the Mindfulness Project provides the CSU with 3 bi-monthly reports. These reports must contain the activities that took place, complete listing of materials and advertising expenses, complete listing of amounts distributed to coordinators. Be it further resolved that the first report be due on December 1st, 2019. Be it further resolved that the CSU encourages the Mindfulness Project to seek different funding sources, such as the student life initiatives and special projects, among many others. And not respecting the motion that has just passed. Be it further resolved that the impact of this motion be $11,183.
Great, thank you. Do we have a second? Elizabeth, your motivation?
Yes. So I spoke with Leah. I can pull up the email if necessary, but the coordinator of the project had modified the budget after council, and the new proposed budget was not taking into account the $5 we promised, was $14,000. So sadly, I didn't have time to communicate with the coordinator this new proposed budget. She had just sent me what they wanted. It'd be good if we can show it to you if need be. This is cutting a lot of the things that are required, except for instructor honorarium. We kept that one fixed because this is a professional person, whereas coordinator and marketing, our understanding is these are students. So although we do want people to be paid for their labor, in a situation where we really scraped for this amount, and again, this amount is coming from lines that I haven't had a chance to talk with my exec saying, hey, are you willing to do this, blah blah blah. So this is just, we see there's space,
let's go forward with it.
Thank
So
you.
just, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. So essentially, this is what we determined was a good way going forward. And yeah, if need be, as I said, I can show you what she had come to me as a second proposal, so that you see how we decided to cut. Yeah.
Thank you. Elias?
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. I just want to speak in favor of, or rather advise, with regards to taking a sudden line in the operational budget. We looked into it, the financial committee, not a good idea. If we could have avoided, like going forward for the rest of our mandate, as to not tap into the operational budget, that'd be fantastic. Because it was really a struggle to dig in there, so that's it, thank you.
Thank you. Emma and then Isaiah?
I had just a question for the finance committee. Clea is the one who presented the project, but is also the coordinator of the project?
Yeah.
Okay.
Isaiah?
I just want to understand, so wait, is this a motion to, at the sake of a line of the operations of the budget, incorporate this project?
Yes.
Okay, then.
So this is can go. The line has been created now, essentially. No expenses have been put onto it yet because of the uncertainty of how we'll be getting funding. This motion is just saying we will allocate $11,183 to that specific line. Where this money will be coming from, we've established the possibilities. They're still to be discussed with the people around here. And then, worst comes to worst, we come back with a new proposal, probably from Student Endowment Fund, but we've seen that it's possible to find this amount.
Did you want to follow up?
Yes, but would it be possible without, like, all things copacetic, like if everything stays the same, would this be able to become a line of operations, or would things have to decrease?
The thing is, we in operational, I think it's 42. There's a built-in surplus of 42, so I mean technically it can go there, but that 42, so to go the surplus to 32, but that was there in case anything happens, in case we get sued, in case someone is sick. So I don't want to touch that amount. I'd rather like the overall expenses stay the same, budgeted expenses, and then we tap into, and that's actually the sentiment of the budgetary impact. It's just if something is to be added to our operational, we look what we've already budgeted at, and then we play around with what we already have instead of just tapping into the surplus we planned.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
So thank you for giving us those details. I'm really concerned based on what you're saying about us having basically mandated that it come from the operational budget, and I think it'd be really good for council to consider rethinking that and maybe rethinking where the money for the mindfulness project comes from, considering it's only October and you guys need your operational budget until the end of May. So I know there's not enough counselors here right now, but maybe if we could talk about this, I don't know, I guess a motion to add it to the agenda point and talk about maybe rethinking how much comes out of the operational budget, or if it should come out of operational at all. I think that's something we should consider.
I think that should go to finance committee, actually.
Does it go
But-
to finance?
Yeah, I think what I was thinking is, as we said, we've looked at what we can do, and then if it doesn't work, I'm thinking coming back and asking for Student Endowment Fund. That was the plan.
I know that you guys are saying this amount can come out.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure if it should. So maybe if council can vote for it not to, even though it's possible for it to, or just us to talk about that next meeting. Yeah, because I know you guys are the money people, so everything is it could, even though it's not, that's not the best idea. So I don't want to just force it. I don't want to force it just because it can. I think we should maybe talk about next meeting if it should at all.
Thank you. Elias?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Isaiah's question or point. The excess is really nice and precious because we're having different issues that are coming up, like the salaries that are being more than what was allocated, and that's not currently super resolved. I know there was a discussion earlier today. I wasn't made aware of what was the outcome, but so it's really precious. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Naomi?
Yeah, just kind of on what Elizabeth was saying. Sorry, or Desiree, or It's because I can't see you, sorry. Would you guys think that it would be, because the endowment fund, as we've been talking about, is like, it's not sacred, but now everyone knows about it and everyone's probably gonna come and ask for funding of it. Would you guys think that like separating it from the operational budget and the endowment fund, like doing 6.5 or 550 or something like that would be better, or like is that?
Did you want to answer it, Isaiah, or Desiree? You can talk.
My best, like, I wish I would have been there for the FinCom, but like, again, it's more so I'm thinking from my understanding of where CAF is this year. I think that 5,000 that was initially proposed can be sent through an operational grant through CAF. Then the rest of it, based off whatever would be left, would be best placed out of the endowment, based off of, it would either have to come out of the surplus or like the surplus, like somewhere, but to touch the lines of operations that like certain like execs who have discretionary budgets are using right now, it wouldn't be the best practice. So in terms of, because I believe that the Mindful project would fall under the scope of an operational grant for CAF, and we did promise CAF is technically within operations. It is done through a community-based committee though, so we'll just have to go through a formal application process. But in terms of that coming from operations is fine, but the full-fledged, I don't think would be able to fit in operations.
Thank you. Okay, so there's no further
Yep. As I said, I haven't had a chance to communicate this with Leah yet. I'm guessing, you know, they won't necessarily be the most happy with it because it's full on half of what they came in to council for. So just to say this might come up again if, I don't know if what, but I just want to say I haven't spoken to her.
Okay. All right, so if there's no more speakers list, then we can move to a vote. So all those in favor of the motion as amended here, or is it amended? No, sorry, the other one was. All those in favor of the motion that is currently on the screen, please raise your placards.
Point of information?
Yeah.
Can you just summarize the application, not the effects of if this motion is adopted to know whether?
So right now, if this motion is adopted, you know, I've been in contact with Leah. She's waiting for some checks. I will start making these checks. This is the budget I will propose to her, and the budget line has been created. The $11,183 will be as the budgeted amount will be allocated to that budget line. Now, where that money is coming from, for now, there's no it's not like she's coming for 11K right now. So there's no, we still have time to talk about student endowment fund, about CAF. It's still ongoing. So yeah, the real life impact is I'll write some checks this week that she's been waiting on. I'll send her this proposed budget, and probably next council meeting, I'll tell you where it's at.
Great, thank you. Okay, so do you have a question?
Sorry, I'm so sorry. No. So just to confirm, we're just voting on this new proposed budget, but not where it's coming from exactly. Okay, cool.
Okay, so all those in favor of the motion on the screen, please raise your placards. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 0. All right, so that carries. Is there anything else on mindfulness? Okay, so if not, we can move on to 7D, which was the Clubs and Space Committee report. Victoria had pulled this. Basically, I think we just need to approve the report. Or I don't know if she wanted to talk. Yes?
Sorry. She wanted to speak about it, and I would like to hear what she has to say
Okay.
about it. But, so I don't think we should just approve it.
Okay.
But I don't want to speak for her either.
Yeah, sorry, I think I might have mixed it up with another report that we had to approve. Okay, so are we okay to table it since Victoria's not here? Okay, so I'll resubmit it with the docs again next week and in 2 weeks, and then we'll deal with that then.
Point of information.
Yes.
So what happens if it's not approved for those minutes that happen, like for that like specific meeting?
I mean, if there's motions in it, they're just not approved until the next meeting.
Okay, just because like
Yeah.
I understand like tabling stuff but if they're not here to ask questions and speak about it at council, like I would just say that it's important that maybe we not just keep tabling things. If they're not here, they're not here. That's their loss, and it's their right to speak in council. But yeah, pretty much.
Point taken. Naomi?
I mean, it's tabled, it's not a discussion, right? So.
It's not, like, I just kind of said, I just asked if the room was amenable to tabling it. There's no motion on the floor right now. So if, like, I see that there's contention, so it's not unanimous, so I don't just get to unanimously be like,
Okay,
oh,
well,
let's table this.
The thing is, this was pulled out of our minutes, like, long meetings ago, and we just never got the time to finish our meeting, so it was always just pushed. And now unfortunately, she's not here for one meeting, and she's asking us, well, I mean, she would like to speak about it, so it's best that we push it and not like silence anyone who has opinions on like our minutes. So I don't think that she should lose on that opportunity to speak about this.
Okay, James?
Yeah, so about the post-convenience, I know there's like certain post-convenience, there's some